Bro, what the fuck are they doing, bro? Just do a quarterback sneak and the had inches to go. Man, I don't know if you guys watch American handball, but it's pretty good Sunday, man. Pretty good Sunday. A whole lot of upsets. And it looks like there might be another upset tonight between the New York Giants and the Buffalo Bills. Look, man, it's been a whole lot of amazing fights that happened over the weekend. Well, specifically with Sam Goodman and Miguel Flores for the co-main event of Tszyu and Brian Mendoza. That was a very good co-main event. That dude, Sam Goodman, he's a good fighter, and he's a very entertaining fighter. Look, man, that fight that I saw in Australia between Tszyu, look, bro, Tszyu is a fucking star. That guy, where he's headed, the way he's moving, the support and the backing that he has in his country. That's a dangerous man. He's very patient. He's very calm. I like to say swatting the flies. That's how you parry and catch shots. Very good defensively, always responsible. He's not one of those guys that is willing to take a shot, to give a shot. No, he's very calculative, and he has a great punch selection. The type of punch selection that you can't really always defend. And shout out to Brian Mendoza for giving us a very good fight. A very good fight. Brian Mendoza is very, very crafty, right? This is the way a fighter, even though he's outmatched or outgunned, right? This is how a fighter, quote unquote, survives in a fight. When you survive, you do what Brian Mendoza did, right? You don't do what Charlo did against Canelo. And Brian Mendoza showed a whole lot of tricks of the trade. For instance, look in the 12th round. He was dancing, was not dancing, but he was boxing and fighting like the drunken bastard, right? And the prior rounds to that, he was rolling, catching, and in the 11th round probably had his best moment where he was just rolling punches and punching in between, even though Tszyu was trying to get him out of there. Brian Mendoza showed a whole lot of defense and grit, toughness, man, and a whole lot of heart that a lot of these big-time fighters nowadays, especially when we talk about championship fights, you don't really see that too often. Brian Mendoza, he's got a bright future ahead of him, right? If he was able to be creative offensively like he was defensively, he's going to be a problem for a lot of fighters. I'm not too sure his age. I think he's under 30. He might be like 28. But he's got a whole lot. I think he will become a champion. I believe once like Charlo and Tszyu move up after they fight, I hope they fight. Yeah, Brian Mendoza is age 29. But I think from what I've seen out of all the 154 pounders, this type of confident Mendoza, this fighter that has a lot of momentum, he'll be a champion soon. For instance, let's say Jamel relinquishes all of his titles. Brian Mendoza would be a champion to pick up one of those titles. He's not the guy at the division, but he's a very sturdy opponent, very formidable. I like what I saw out of him. Of course, I also loved what I saw out of Tszyu, right? But make no mistake about it, Brian Mendoza is very good. He's very tough, very slick, very crafty, a veteran. But he's no Charlo. Jamel is going to give Tszyu hell, mainly with straight punches. The same combination sequences that he threw against Canelo Alvarez, he's going to throw it at Tszyu. He's going to be snapping Tszyu's head back. It's going to be a competitive fucking fight. Competitive fight. I got Charlo But Tim Tszyu is he's gonna get a war. This is gonna be another Brian Castano, Jermell Charlo. Hell, there might be two fucking fights, right? Tim Tszyu wants it. He said, "I'll see you in Vegas." I can't wait. Hopefully they do it early January, maybe a new year, December 31st, January 1st, around that week would be amazing. That would be a great way to kick off 2024 and already an undisputed champion all over again at 154. It's a little wishful thinking, but Jermell didn't take too much punishment against Canelo. Tim Tszyu didn't take too much punishment where it should bar them from getting that fight happening. And that would be fucking fireworks. That would be a party. Obviously, for Tim and Jermell, they probably want to celebrate the holidays and the times with their family and just celebrate the new year. But that would be the great way to start off boxing in 2024. Tim Tszyu is very wise beyond his years. I like his patience, right? Even when he's cutting off the ring, and even when he has your back, not his back, but his opponent's back up against the ropes, it's always calculated. It's always a reserved, calm demeanor that he has. And he has great punch selection. Very witty. There was a couple of sequence of punches that hurt Brian Mendoza, obviously. But there was a lead, too, that he hadn't thrown the whole fight, Tim Tszyu. And he threw it in that round. I believe it was the 10th round. And snapped Brian Mendoza's head back and just buzzed him. And then that's where all those onslaught of punches came. I believe, I don't know if it was before or after he started popping 3 brutal uppercuts, right? It was reminiscent of when Tank had that one fighter up against the ropes and he popped like 7 or 8 uppercuts back to back. That was amazing, man. That fight was incredible. I like seeing shit like that. Shout out to Brian for being competitive and being reluctant to take a knee, right? That guy's got a heart of a champion. And Tim Tszyu versus Jermell Charlo, again, if that fight happened in January 1st, December 31st, oh, man, that would be something. I don't know why boxing or boxers don't take up and fight on the most important American holidays. Like, imagine watching boxing on the 4th of July. After everyone's popping fireworks, there's a boxing match in there, right? Same thing with we get football on these weeks, right? Thanksgiving, there's 3-4 football games. Why not boxing matches? And then you can feast afterwards. Why not Christmas? You can feast and then you can celebrate afterwards. Same thing with New Year's. There's a lot of untapped potential. And you never know. People might tune in because one of the things that people, not only are they home the majority of the time for the holidays, unless they're on a little vacation, they're celebrating it with family and food, but they're also more or less glued to the TV. They're in their living rooms, opening up presents. Now you can open up your presents. You can turn on the TV and you can watch some amazing boxing. They do it with football. I don't know why they don't do it with boxing. If Jermell were to fight Tim Tszyu next, credit to Jermell Charlo. I want to say something when it comes down to Jermell Charlo and Tim Tszyu. This whole situation between now and then, Jermell played himself. Jermell made a mistake in his career. To this point, in this time in his life, Jermell has always made the calculated business correct moves. He stayed his whole career at 154. That was genius. His tenure and his run at 154, fighting the fighters that he's fought, were amazing. Then he had a hand injury. It was almost like a sense of desperation taking that Canelo fight. It's like, bro, hand surgery, 1-year hiatus, and 4 months, and you're moving up 14 pounds to fight Canelo? Nah, bro. What you should have done is you should have fought Tim Tszyu first for a comeback fight. Then Terrence Crawford, and then Canelo. But now that you lost to Canelo, you got stripped of your status. It took you 10 years to get to that position of being undisputed. Tim Tszyu now has one of your belts, so you're no longer, I guess, prestigious, right? You lose a little bit of credibility. A lot of people don't want to support you. They're talking a gang of shit. And then now you can't even get your Terrence Bud Crawford fight. He made a mistake. This whole time, this whole run, knocking out Jason Rosario, knocking down the rematch, Brian Castano, everything you've done up to that point had been amazing. And then you threw it all away to fight Canelo, which you stripped yourself, right, of beating Tszyu. You stripped yourself of probably getting a Terrence Bud Crawford fight. And Canelo would have always been there for him. Jermell versus Canelo was always going to be there in the table. But now that he lost, essentially all he's got is Tszyu. And now you have to knock the confidence of Tszyu while you're trying to regain yours because you're coming off a loss. Sure, it's a loss to Canelo, but now you can quote unquote say there is a blueprint for you to get beat. And now you can beat. And a lot of people might say, well, Tszyu isn't Canelo. I don't know, man. Go watch the tape. He's starting to fight a lot like Canelo. He's throwing the same kind of punch selections. He's catching and parrying a lot of those shots like a Canelo. All he needs to do is add that head movement, being slick. And then you got a mini Canelo and Tszyu. He's already stocky. He's 5'8", basically the same build as Canelo. He's young, he's durable, and he's always learning. It's going to be a very good fight when this fight happens, and hopefully it happens sooner than later. For Jermell, it almost feels like he has to start all over and reset and gain the respect of people. It's not going to be very easy, man. It's not going to be very easy for Jermell. But Tszyu wants it. He told the reporter after the fight, I want Charlo. I'll see you in Vegas. He told him, come get your belt. If I'm Jermell Charlo, that's pretty much the only fight that I have in my career. Now, there are rumors, and I think that's pretty much exactly what it is. Speculations that Bud Crawford would have fought the winner of Brian Mendoza and Tszyu, but I don't really see that happening. Obviously, we know Bud Crawford is tied down with an Errol Spence rematch, whether that be at 147, at 154. I don't really know who caused the shots. Obviously, one would infer that it would be Bud Crawford since he has all the marbles at 147. But if this fight were to take place at 154, if Errol says, I can no longer make 147, then Bud doesn't really call all the shots, right? And if he wanted more pay, it would make sense, but it's not going to be a significant pay increase because I don't know, the fight sells more than the first one, and then C, all the titles aren't going to be on the line if they fight north of 147. And the fight was so dominant and so one-sided that Bud might not even wake up feeling motivated to fuck up Errol Spence just because it's just like, bro, this shit wasn't even competitive. We're supposed to almost have a trilogy on this fucking fight. And I fucking destroyed you. So I doubt Bud Crawford would fight Tszyu. From a stylistic standpoint, that would be a very good fight. I like Bud Crawford, obviously, in that fight because he can throw straight, hard punches. But, man, there's a new kid on the block. And Tszyu, man, that 154 division, if all of those fighters were to move up to middleweight, the middleweight division would look that much better. Right now, the middleweight division is a little, I don't know, man. There's only like 2, 3, 4 good names in there. And 2 of them are from like the UK and Liam Smith and Chris Eubank Jr. And the other 2 is like Carlos Adames and Johnny Beck. And that's essentially it. There's really nobody else there. So all those 154 pounders have to just move up to middleweight, man. Like Jermell, Tszyu, they all have to, after they fight one another, after one of those becomes undisputed, maybe Brian Castano at middleweight. I mean, hell, Danny Garcia and Jose Benavidez are at middleweight. And if they can make it, so can all those full-fledged 154-pounders. That's the way I look at it, man. And I cannot believe, I'm not too sure if you guys are watching American handball, but I think the fucking New York Giants are going to beat the Buffalo Bills. That's one of the worst teams in football. They're 1-4 beating, quote-unquote, a Super Bowl contender. Well, at least I thought they were a Super Bowl contender. I know the Bills are rigged with injuries to their linebackers and to their defense, but it's no excuse, man. It's the New York Giants. This is crazy to me. Hold on, give me a second, guys. I got to see this drive right here. What is that? 4th and inches. They're gonna go kick the field goal. What are you gonna do, Brian Dable? What are you gonna do, bruh? Man, I want to go to a little side point really quick. I don't know about you guys, but I fucking love peanut butter, especially super chunky, skippy peanut butter with the extra crunch. And then you get some Smucker's jelly. Bro, there's probably nothing better in life than an amazing peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like that thing, you get your protein, right, from the peanut butter. It's low in calories for the most part. You know, like bread per, I don't know, serving is like 70 calories. Your peanut butter has 190 or so. And then your jelly. So you can get satisfied with a peanut butter and jelly for under like 250 calories, and you get your sweetness, you get your protein. Bro, like, if you want to slice up some bananas in that bitch, man, there's nothing better in life than a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, man. Yo, what's going on, Speed? Why you have a picture of Anthony Joshua, man?
Why do you think I have a picture of Anthony Joshua?
What's the news? What's the news?
Big news, incredible news. I think I'm about to break news for the most part because I had to find out these news from some source. But this is probably the biggest news of the day. And I would like to just give you, the homie Ricky, and whatever listeners have hopped on early enough into this live stream, good even fall to you and all, um, an opportunity to guess why it is that I would put the image, a photographic image of my favorite heavyweight fighter currently. I'll
Because
give you
he's
guys
not
10
fighting
seconds.
Deontay Wilder.
Okay. And why is that, homie Ricky? Why would he not fight Deontay Wilder?
He's afraid of the Alabama slammer.
Yeah, I guess I mean if I was caught in the jail in Alabama, yeah, I'd be scared myself. But no. Today, October the 15th, in the year 1989, Anthony Olawafemi Olaseni Joshua, better known as Anthony Joshua, was born. And I just wanted to wish the gentleman, because he is a gentleman, um, the violent gentleman, Anthony Joshua, great pugilist and entrepreneur. I would like to wish him a happy birthday. For many, many years now, he's provided valuable entertainment for myself, and I reckon all the other millions of people around the world that idolize the guy, or fighters and young kids that look up to him and the way that he has fought and how he's moved in his career. I believe he is a very unique heavyweight fighter, like very reminiscent to Tim Tszyu, those guys that take on all comers. They want to move rather quick, and in fact, I believe Anthony Joshua has less fights than Tim Tszyu. But it's those kind of fighters that know that they have a job to do, and that have been granted the opportunity, the, to favor the people and to provide them what they came here to do. Now, he goes in there and he tries to become undisputed in one of the fastest runs in all weight classes. Doesn't pan out for the guy. And yes, we do know that Mr. Anthony Joshua has looked none too. He has looked a bit shabby in his last few fights. But nonetheless, while he was going at it and giving us the violence and testing himself and being the knockout artist that he was. I really enjoyed what he was doing. So happy birthday to Mr. Anthony Joshua. I am a great admirer of your work. I hope you can come out of that crazy funk that makes you reluctant and tentative to throw your punches, because I want to see that guy that can knock everybody out and take on all names and all comers.
So what's the news? That today is his birthday?
Yeah, that was it.
Psh,
Well, listen, last time I wanted to do the same thing for Julio Cesar Chavez about a month ago. And you did not let me. You cut me off. You cut me off. I was about to wish the guy a happy birthday. About 3 weeks ago, I was going to say something about Andre Durrell, who officially retired. And you cut me off and you didn't let me say that. And then
man,
guess what?
I'm not here to acknowledge people's birthday. Talk about Tszyu and Jamel Charlo.
I just admire these guys so much that I just think it would be negligent on my part to not at least bid them adieu when it's their time to go. But that's all. No,
I want to ask you a question because there were some fights that happened this Saturday. Were you entertained about your Misfit catalog fights?
yes, 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 I was.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, not the main events though.
which one?
I was entertained very well, very much so by
By which one?
by Salt Poppy and Slim. I was also the Coladas, the four-way the tag team match. I thought that was very very entertaining. I saw a new fighter. I won't call him boxer, but I seen a new fighter that I had not seen in these what I would call entertainment pugilism bouts, who ended up knocking down Pineda, the Mexican 6 foot tall something who's actually a pro.
So
He
it was worth your $60, huh?
um uh no, no, it wasn't. No,
No, it was.
as much as the as much, well, it's because, see, here's the thing, homie Ricky, and I was actually going to tell you about this, right? Why is it that whenever people are expected to pay money to watch the fights, the main event fights suck? Why is it that these guys like Jermel Charlo and Logan Paul with Dylan Dennis and KSI with Tommy Fury, why is it that once they secured the bag, they feel that they don't have to fight anymore,
It's
that they
very
don't have to
simple.
entertain?
Because two things. One is they don't want to get embarrassed. Okay, they don't want to go viral for getting slept. Okay, because everything's about ego, right? Now, and then B, they simply don't respect their fans enough. What I mean by that is this: the way they go about processing and interpreting such events, such situations, right? If, like you said, just going just off topic for a little bit, if I already secure the bag, right, and I want to continue to get future bags, I have a responsibility to entertain people, to give them something mesmerizing, to not only train throughout my training camp and work hard, but on fight night, I have to not only just try, but I have to represent and respect not only my time, but everybody else's time as well. Okay. I carry the pride of your last name, who you are, your people, your gym, and it's trying to inspire them. So you have a responsibility to more than just oneself. You're gonna get paid regardless. Now, of course, your job is not to get knocked out, but your job is to, at the end of the day, when you're under the Misfit catalog, your job is there to entertain. You're not just there to quote unquote try. You're there to try to execute the best that you can possibly be. Logan Paul and company, they don't really give you that. And here's another thing: at least when it came down to certain fights, these quote unquote fighters, they don't understand that philosophy because they're just this is a hustle for them. So they don't care to really entertain you. Now they should, but they're gonna do everything else but give you amazing fights. So they'll do hell in the cell buildups. They'll throw mics. They'll throw water bottles. They'll throw chickens and spit at each other just for build up and promotion. Because this is what I've been trying to tell you guys. It's all a hustle for them. These are side missions for them. Okay. When I talk about money and paying top dollar, even if it's fighters with Jamel, they're at least trying extraordinary hard. And then they realize, fuck, it's even harder in this fucking ring with this motherfucker right here that's super talented and trained equally, if not harder than me. And I have these obstacles that I have to go through in terms of adding weight or whatever the case may be. But this is what I've been trying to tell you with Misfit guys. Here, they're just here to hustle you. They're running a con game. And I'm not going to get bought into that because I basically saw Floyd Mayweather do it for 10 to 15 years. Though at least with Floyd, he was still giving us and fighting fighters that I actually liked and cared about, right? Juan Manuel Marquez, Canelo Alvarez, Marcos Maidana. He was fighting those guys. Now, he didn't fight other styles besides a come-forward fighter. You know, like he didn't fight an Arizlandi Lara, fighters that actually retreat and circle out and quote-unquote play chess rather than aggressive chess. I'm not going to buy into that whole, oh, they're going to put on a ski mask and they're going to quote-unquote rob the bank. So I'm not going to give that money and credit to these quote-unquote, you know, entertainers. That's why, man.
Yeah, no, so I don't necessarily agree with what you stated, right? Because for the most part, if you know anything about these influencers, especially the ones that had the main event, those guys are already financially secured, right? I mean, Tunje, KSI, he's a multimillionaire. I'm not too sure what he's worth, but I know that Prime, his company, the one that he and Logan Paul, since they're buddies, they created. That's $1 billion industry. It has $1 million contracts with the UFC and FC Arsenal and a couple of other soccer leagues. They don't need to act the fool. You see what I'm saying? They don't need to act the fool. They're not trying to scam you because if for the most part, you know what you're getting into, right? I mean, see, this is the problem that I have with a lot of these boxing hardcores like yourself, right? And I'm one of them. Is that you guys actually think these guys are boxers? When you guys call these guys boxers, the fallacy is on you, right? Because I don't call them boxers. I call them fighters. I don't call them pros. I call them entertainers or at most novices, right? But you guys take it quite personal, as if these guys are trying to supplant, as if these guys are trying to replace the sport of boxing. And I tell you, as a matter of fact, because I move in both circles. I move in both circles. I follow both sides of the sport. Never do I run into people, or rarely ever, do I run into people that are fans of both things, right? You don't see too much of the crossover fan base from the misfits actually trying to follow real professional boxers, and vice versa. Most of them are exactly like you. They don't care about the Jamel Charlos, or they might care about the Canelo Alvarez, because these guys are there to follow moments and experiences and whatever is hype at the moment. That's what they do. They follow hype, and most of them are younger generation people that are just into entertainment and a good time. I have no problem with that. And when they see a real fighter beating up on another fighter, and then they look at what the misfit fighters are doing, they know the difference. They're not stupid. It's just that they don't see the fun in professional boxing that they do when they see the misfit fighters. You see what I'm saying? So they stick to their lane. You guys think that these guys are trying to cross over and rob your sport, the sport that you and I are involved in. And I don't see it that way. I also don't see why I cannot be a fan of both things. See, it's maturity, right? Uh, I've with age, of course, you develop um, you come into being yourself. There's not much that you can teach a no dog, right? Once you're set in your ways and stuff like that, there's really no coming back. You're not gonna tell a 65-year-old man, hey, watch this, watch this, and they're gonna be laughing their ass off. They're gonna be, what am I, an idiot? What is this BS? That's exactly what the hardcore old fella from the generations like myself would do. Mike Tyson would probably say the same thing. But guess what? I don't even think Mike Tyson ever says anything about these guys. Why? Because he knows they're different things. Right? These pros never address these misfit fighters because they know they're different things. And the only ones that have an issue with it are the fans. You know what the fans also mostly do? They're mostly never involved in the sport themselves, not as fighters, not as managers, not as parents of fighters, not as trainers. So I really find it quite illogical and unreasonable that us hardcores would feel so strongly about some youngsters that are trying to create content for their own viewership, for their own followers. They're not doing it for you, and we know they succeed providing them and their followers the goods. Why? Because that arena was sold out. Like every single event that I've seen from the Misfits, especially the pay-per-views. Now, does that mean it's not going to be riddled with a controversy or unnecessary BS? Does it mean that it's never going to disappoint with the main events because people are there to actually see some stuff going on? Maybe not crazy old violence, but see some stuff going on. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you that's never going to happen. We saw that yesterday. We saw that incredible, boring display of I don't even know what to call it. But these fighters, Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis, were just taunting each other, not doing anything. When it did get fun, it got very controversial. But that's what they're only controversial to us, the hardcores, because we would never see that in professional. But between them and their followers, guess what? They expect these shenanigans. So again, I paid $55 because you paid $65 at Top Rank if you ended up subscribing to them. Because Tommy Fury is under a contract, I guess, with Queensborough, and Queensborough does work with Top Rank. But nonetheless, if you're a paid subscriber to the zone, you got it for $55. I know you're gonna be like, whoop de woo, you save the $10. You still pay $25 at the end of the month for the membership itself. But what I'm saying, homie Ricky, is that I can actually have fun watching these idiots try to test themselves and have fun while making money.
It was cheap theater.
Absolutely,
It's cheap theater.
absolutely,
So
absolutely. Well,
yeah, they were.
let's take it back. What is theater, for example?
This is what you have to understand. I don't care if they're here to run their hustle and to entertain and make content for their fan base. That's not the argument. The argument here is that it wasn't entertaining. It was terrible.
Not the whole card, though, homie Ricky. There was a lot of good action. Astrid Wet.
It's not worth $60.
Well, that's always again. That's a very subjective thing. Did I laugh all kinds? Did I have fun with my children? Was $60 worth gathering with my family and laughing at these idiots,
You
having
didn't
fun and
laugh.
punching each other out?
You
Uh,
didn't laugh because taking punches is not a laughing matter. So you're not going to laugh.
no, we were laughing.
Moving on to Tszyu and Brian Mendoza. What are your thoughts on the fight?
Okay, I know you were. I know you didn't want to give Tim Tszyu the credit, the validation of a true champion, right? And I get that. I get that. Um, young Devin Haney similarly did not get the credit or the validation of being a real champion when Lomachenko decided to walk out and fighting them, and Top Rank chose to, petition for a franchisee entitlement to Lomachenko. Uh, I know that for the most part, we value the champions that beat a champion for the procurement proper and well of a belt. Young Devin Haney didn't do that.
Yes, he did. He
No, he
literally
didn't.
just did what you just said in your last sentence. He said, "We usually respect people who beat the champion of the champion." So, what was George Cambosis? Did George Cambosis not beat Teofimo Lopez? Did Teofimo Lopez not beat
The
Lomachenko?
homie Ricky, let's not be hard headed. Let's not be hard
No,
headed.
no, no.
When
Why you're
Devin Haney, wait up. When Devin Haney got the belt, he got it gifted. Now, I'm not trying to say he never redeemed himself, and I'm not trying to say he never got the belts the proper way, and I'm not even saying he never got the belts from the guy he should have fought in the first place for his first belt, but he didn't get his first belt from a fucking champion. Sorry for my cuss words, but you know this. Let's not try to be hard
no,
headed.
that's not
Similar
what
thing
you
happened.
said.
Wait.
What you said is being called the champion. So did when Devin Haney beat George Cambosis, was that not? Because look, I don't care about that franchise shit. I don't care about that.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Teofimo was undisputed after he beat Lomachenko. I don't care about the politics.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Everybody knows Tio was lineal. He was
yeah.
Ring Magazine. He held all the belts when he beat Lomachenko.
Mhm.
George Cambosis beat Teofimo Lopez and knocked him down. And he got knocked down, and then he went on to win the championship rounds.
Yeah.
Did Devin Haney not beat George Cambosis twice?
Yes, yeah, but let me ask you something. Do you understand what you just said?
And people still did not give Devin Haney
Wait,
the
but you can't have
respect.
it both ways, though, homie Ricky.
It's not both ways.
No,
So
you did. I don't think you. I don't think. I think you're not. You're missing the point. What you just
I
said.
wish that I
The
could
only reason. Wait up. In your eyes, it is a de facto, undisputed uh, fight that took place between Teofimo Lopez and Vasily Lomachenko. Whether or not he was actually considered an undisputed in your eyes and in mine, myself personally, that fight was for undisputed, right? That's what you're saying.
yeah, Lomachenko
Okay,
killed
okay.
Teofimo.
But you cannot say that could have been an undisputed fight if Devin Haney had the belt. You see, you're trying to have it both ways.
What?
You're trying. Devin Haney. The reason why that fight was not an actual tried and true undisputed fight is because one of the belts was missing, and that's
Hold
the
up,
one
hold
that
up.
Devin Haney held.
No, there wasn't. Doesn't two things.
One thing.
Franchise, no, quote unquote. If you want to play politics by your way, three things actually. One, the franchise title no longer exists. Two, unification, let alone undisputed matches, trumps a mandatory. C, the franchise belt was created so fighters can go ahead and unify. So if Lomachenko is still the franchise title and his goal is to become unified or undisputed, guess what's still on the line? The undisputed status.
Homie
So
Ricky, that's wrong.
Rewinding everything, it's still undisputed on the line.
Homie Ricky, that's wrong.
So those three things just supersedes anything that you just stated.
No, homie Ricky, you're absolutely wrong. That's not what the point of a franchisee assignation was for. It's not to become unified. You don't need that to become unified. All you need is the proper movement and the proper crossover and matchmaking to make a unification fight. The franchisee was so that a champion could fight at multiple weight classes, skipping the line and doing it all for the business. That's the reason why Lomachenko and Canelo were granted it, because they figured that Canelo could go up into multiple weight classes to make the hottest fights happen with the hottest champions. Not necessarily to unify with other dudes. You don't need that. That's why we just had a unification fight that did not need a franchise assignation when we had Alam Kanulai versus Gutierrez.
Here's a beautiful definition I typed out on Google. Why was the WBC franchise belt created? A franchise designation by the WBC would allow the reigning champion, Lomachenko, to enjoy a special status when it came down to mandatories, Devin Haney, mandatory obligations, holding multiple world titles and competing for all their organization titles.
All their organization titles. Yes, a
Other
title. Wait
organizations.
up. An organization only has one
Guy,
title.
bro, I just explained to you the definition.
No, and I'm trying to tell you, you're
No,
you're
you
you're
don't
ignoring
have
it.
to tell me. I just
Look,
read the
an
definition. There is
organization
no
only has
interpretation.
homie
There is no
Ricky. I
interpretation when
think
that
you.
is the definition.
Let me ask you something. Were you a skater when you were younger?
There is no interpretation when that is
Were
the
you
definition.
were
If
you
you
a skater when you
understood,
were younger?
my guy, if you understood the definition, okay, then there's no reason to interpret it. If that is the definition, if you understood it, it doesn't have to.
Homie Ricky, here's the thing. I believe you were a skater when you were younger and you probably rode without a helmet. How
What,
do I
what,
know that? Because you're ignoring your own words. You don't need a
I
franchise.
never said you
Listen,
needed it.
listen,
Where
listen,
is this unique
listen. Let me talk. Let me
definition?
talk because whenever you get rebutted, you always want to do that. You want to give point A,
It's because
point
you're
B,
going
and point
for it.
C. You just gave point
Ridiculous,
A.
bro.
Listen, you gave point A, point B, and point C. Right? I haven't even made point A. Right? But you just
You
want to take
did.
over. Listen,
Yes, you did. You
I
didn't
told you. Look, okay,
explain
whatever,
this
bro.
definition,
I'm
bro.
not gonna go back and forth like that black
My
guy
God.
and that white guy on the television. I'm not gonna argue with you.
No,
And
you
a
literally,
franchisee
I
assignation
don't even
has
think
to
you
do
remember
with
what you said, bro.
a franchisee assignation has to do uh, with the opportunity for that organization to fight for their titles. You know how many titles an organization has at any given weight class? Only one. So you don't need that. You need it so that you can hop the line to go into a higher weight class for another one of their titles. You can go down for another one of their titles. You can go up two weight classes for another one of their titles. But every organization only has one belt at each weight class. So you don't need that. And it does allow you the opportunity to actually maneuver outside of your mandatory. Yeah, that's exactly what it required. It required Devin Haney to take a step back so that Lomachenko could probably go up to 140 or 130, or in this case, just fight Teofimo Lopez. But if there was any constancy, you would have understood that Devin Haney would never have gotten the belt because that's why he got it. At the end of the day, Devin Haney got what a lot of people consider an email belt, an email champ, because he never beat the champion, right? That's why, in your eyes, Teofimo Lopez, when he fought Lomachenko, it was for a de facto undisputed because nobody had beaten Lomachenko for the belts. Nobody had beaten Teofimo Lopez for the belts. You see what I'm saying? So Devin Haney had to redeem himself and prove himself the hard way by beating the guy who beat the guy, which is George Kambosos, Georgie, and then he had to beat Lomachenko. He proved that one way or another he was going to be the champion if they hadn't just emailed him the belt. And when he beat Lomachenko, arguably he probably didn't, but still, nonetheless, on paper it is. But that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not trying to argue everything else that you said. I'm just trying to get you to understand your own point. It has to acknowledge the fact that for an undisputed fight between between Teofimo Lopez and Lomachenko, and at the end of the day, an undisputed fight between George Kambosos and Devin Haney required the first fight between Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney and Lomachenko. You see what I'm saying? So, long story short,
Whoa, whoa,
Tim's.
whoa! Stop! Hold on.
You We're talking Tim Tszyu. We're not talking Devin Haney. I'm trying to bring it
No,
back
no,
to
no.
Tim
I just
Tszyu.
let you ramble on for 5 minutes straight without interruption.
Okay, I'm gonna time you now.
You
Go for
told
it.
me the long story. If you couldn't tell me the short version of it, that's your loss. I don't have to hear another short version of your long ass story that you just told. I hope you go back. I hope you go back and listen to everything that you just stated when you hopped on. Okay, I just hope you go back because first and foremost, The WBC is not the only organization that has multiple titles for fighters to become undisputed. There's something called the WBA Super Champion and the
Yup.
WBA Regular
And
Champion.
it's all the same thing.
Hold on. The WBO also wanted to do something special, and they wanted to create their own WBO Super Champ and Teofimo Lopez. So now there's a whole lot of shenanigans going on here. So that was one of the points that you talked about that was wrong. So when it comes down to the WBC only having another thing, look, man, I hope you go back and listen to whatever it is that you said. The last 20 minutes of this video. It's the most asinine things ever. I don't know if you really listen and like kind of think before you speak, at least when it comes down to this topic, because it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so I'm not even gonna address any of the other further talking points because that doesn't matter. The short version of it is this: people didn't give Devin Haney the respect when he quote unquote got the email champion. Didn't even give him the respect after beating George Kambosos, who was the real undisputed champion at the time. He didn't just do it once in a boring fashion, 1-2 clinching the first time. He had to do it twice in an even more dominating fashion and a much more entertaining bout where he was looking for the KO. Okay? That wasn't enough. He fought the guy that everybody thought those belts deserve, as if Teofimo did not easily, or not easily, but convincingly, without dispute, beat Lomachenko. They still didn't give Devin Haney the credit for beating Loma, or draw, or a loss. It doesn't matter. Devin is conducting himself like a true champion. Tim Tszyu, I'm not trying to, you said earlier that I wasn't trying to give him credit because he didn't beat Jermell. What I am trying to say is I'm going to give him credit for the tough fight in beating Brian Mendoza. But just like you said, the same standard should apply. If we're going to give Devin not his credit, we can't be giving Tim Tszyu his credit for the reason that they stripped Jermell. Okay? That's the only short version of it. I'm going to give Tim Tszyu credit for what he's doing because he's fighting tough fighters and he's beating them in impressionable fashion. Now, he's going to get the utmost respect if he were to do the same thing to Jermell Charlo, knock him out or knock him down or just beat him decisively. So that's the difference, okay? I'm not here to knock down Tim's hustle. I'm not here to knock down his game. I respect his game. I respect his skills. But make no mistake about it, Brian Mendoza is not Jermell Charlo. Make no mistake about it, this belt should have not been on the line, okay? Because if you were to tell me Tony Harrison gives validation to Tim Tszyu, then what the fuck was Carlos Ocampo? No, Brian Mendoza is solid, really good fighter, okay? Tim Tszyu is a very good fighter. And I hope him and Jermell get it on. I would like for it to be in January, but it kind of really depends on the politics, but definitely not from Tim Tszyu side. Tim Tszyu said, simple, I'll see you in Vegas. So he's already conceding that he's willing to fight the champion, the face at 154 in the United States. That's the short version of it. So again, what did you think about the fight? And what did you think about Tim Tszyu and how he went about fighting Brian Mendoza? Were you impressed? Were you entertained? And how does he look versus Jermell Charlo?
Well, what do you think about the fight?
Well, I already told in the beginning before you hopped in, like I already talked about the
Oh,
fight.
I didn't hear it though.
No, but I asked you the question.
I'm just giving you another 5 minutes.
Well, I was very entertained by the bout. What I've seen, one of the things that I'm most impressed about Tim Tszyu is not only is he a mini Canelo Alvarez in the sense of his skills, he defends a lot like him. All he really needs to do is move his head and have head movement and slip punches like Canelo. And that's pretty much another Canelo Alvarez right there. I like the selection of punches. I like how he attacks. He's got a good left hook. He's got a good right hand. I like his patience. Even when he has you hurt, he knows and he reads body language. right? And he understands when a fighter is buzzed versus when he has a fighter really hurt. And then he takes it up the other gear. When he has you buzzed, he stole, especially he respected a lot of Brian Mendoza's skill, that he didn't just went out there and just throw a bunch of punches, because he knew Brian Mendoza, even though he was hurt by a punch, even though he might be buzzed and his head might be rocking and is pumping with a bunch of blood, he was very methodical in terms of utilizing his jab, correct punch selection. And when he had Brian Mendoza up against the ropes, he even still remained more patient and not just throwing a barrage of punches up until he knew in the 10th round, this is when I can get him out. And then you saw him turn it up another notch. Prior to that 10th round, the other previous 9 rounds, very patient. Quality. It reminds me a lot of Canelo Alvarez. Canelo does exactly the same thing. What Canelo has done in 50, close to 60 fights, Tim Tszyu is showing us a microcosm of what he's been studying Canelo and been able to implement in 20-something. For instance, what Canelo at age 23 when he fought Floyd, I know Brian Mendoza is no Floyd, but I don't know how old Tim Tszyu is. Let's just say Tim Tszyu is 25 years old, 26. I like Tim Tszyu at age 26, not who he's fighting in terms of opponents, but I like how fast he's progressing at age 26 versus Canelo at age 26. I think at age 26, Canelo was fighting like Amir Khan and Liam Smith. Actually, how old is Tim Tszyu? He might even be 30 fucking years old. I don't even know. But in his first, 26 bouts? Yeah, the kid's wise beyond his years. Let's check this out. Box link. Tim Tszyu is 28 years old. So not Canelo at age 28, of course, because Canelo at age 28 was very nice and fighting triple Gs. But 24 fights into his career versus Canelo's 24 fights into his career, Tim Tszyu is a great fucking learner, fast learner, and a very patient learner. And that's what I've been most impressed about him. And I would say if you were to fight Jermell Charlo, I would give him 45% favoring 55 for Jermell, for Tim Tszyu to score the victory. That's how impressed I've been by him.
Yeah, I don't know if you said this. I don't know if you said this a couple of lives ago when we were talking about it. I don't know if maybe this was a personal conversation that I was having with you, or we actually went live. But I don't. This sounds like a different opinion of yours. I don't think you ever discredited Tim Tszyu. I just don't think you were as impressed about it when I told you that I thought Tim Tszyu, to me, looked like one of the more noticeably quick learners in the game. I kept telling you since I started to watch him more attentively when he started to make more noise about 4 or 5 fights ago, that every single time that he was out there, he kept doing something new. And I don't know if maybe it just glossed over you, because a lot of the things gloss over you. You think you know everything, but I kept telling you, and I'm the one who said this guy is going to beat Charlo. I don't know if I gave him a 50-50. I think I'm going to give him a 50-50 because he's been much more active. He's taken on different styles. He's won his fights by different ways and means, right? And he has not had a long layoff, nor has he had any kind of injuries, like the kind that affects a fighter's career, like Jermell Charlo has. He is not going to have to deal with having to cut down 2 weight classes to come back over here and fight him. And if Charlo does do it, it's probably going to be after, I don't know, maybe 8 months of recovery time. But I don't think Jermell Charlo is going to come back anytime soon. I think Jermell Charlo is likely going to be stripped of another one of his belts. I believe I've heard somewhere around that he's about 20 days out from having to make a decision in one of the sanctioning organizations whether or not he's going to be fighting a guy who's been waiting in line for 4 years at a shot The number one mandatory, I think, is in the IBF. For Jermell Charlo, I don't think Jermell is going to take that fight because he's a nondescript foreign fighter that I've never seen fight, or maybe I have, but I don't remember seeing him fight. There's likely going to be no money in that fight. And it's going to be probably a very tough fight, especially having to cut two weight classes. So I think Jermell Charlo is being prime to sustain another loss, this time against an Aussie that, in my opinion, is very astute. Like you said, very patient. He has a proper punch placement. He's very good defensively, at least using his arms and blocking and everything. I do think he has some flaws. Like, for example, what I didn't like about Tszyu is that he seems to be too squared up for my liking. There was times that he was just squared up, and I understand that he doesn't really have to worry about, against Brian Mendoza. He didn't really have to worry about, taking a proper stand and everything like that, because he was using his reach, he was using his range and his reach very excellently, keeping his distance so that he can capitalize on the mistakes that the man from Albuquerque was making. But in the long run, if he has to face somebody who's quick, somebody who's rangier, and maybe Jermell Charlo is that type of fighter, I haven't taken his dimensions yet. But if he doesn't, start leaning or to one side a bit more and squares up, and if he doesn't get his head out the line, because that's another one of the things that I saw, it doesn't seem like he really was too worried about keeping his head off the line. If he corrects those things, he definitely beats Jermell Charlo. But I was very impressed by this kid. Brian Mendoza was on a hot streak, very good hot streak, knocking down good names out there, tough fighters to beat, like Fundora. Fundora is not an easy fighter to beat, and we know this because a lot of people have faced him, and he completely destroys him. He fights different from how you would expect a tall, rangier fighter to fight, which is from a distance and jabbing. No, this guy goes in there and he scraps, and he gets up in there close in your face, and he starts throwing everything, and he takes shots. So we know he has a chin, and we know he's hard. But I don't know if he's ever gonna be an easy fight for anybody. If that is Sebastian Fundora. But nonetheless, I do think that Tszyu is the next guy to become a unified champion, and I can't wait to see him fight another champion or another good name.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point when it comes down to Jermell, man. If I don't know how, I know the IBF is a very fair organization. It's probably my favorite organization right now in all of boxing. Especially, I like that 10-pound rehydration clause, the second weigh-in. I like how they enforce their mandatories. If I'm Jermell, I'm taking care of that mandatory. I don't want to lose another title. This would be another good way to build up Tszyu, have Tszyu defend his WBO belt on the same night, and then build up a great fight in the summer between those two guys. You said something about 8 months. I hope Charlo doesn't take that long of an inactivity, because he's not getting any younger, and he needs to regain his status at 154, because it took him 10 years to become undisputed. And if he's not going to defend his belts once properly after beating Castaño, because he hasn't defended his status.
No.
And I think we've talked about this in previous lives, where a lot of undisputed champions very rarely, if ever, defend their status. Once they get all those belts, they either move up or they realize, man, I can't fight all 3-4 mandatories in 1 year, and then they start relinquishing them.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. I think there's only been a select few. I don't even think, man, it's very difficult to do, and I understand it. So hopefully the IBF or Jermell reaches out to them. I think you did also mention that he's already like 20 days past late. So
no, he's got 20 days on me, Ricky, to make up his mind what he's gonna do. Yeah. So there's still some work in there, but I would, if I was a betting man, and I'm not, I would say he's gonna give up that one. And he would at least hold on to two, right? Which is two is better than none. But let me ask you, homie Rick. It's like this: you just came back from fighting your most boring fight ever, right? Your most inactive, most embarrassing performance ever. Because that's one thing that you could say that you can't say about Jamel Ironman Charlo. He's never a boring fighter. You know, he's always knocking people out or being in very good scraps. That's why he's had a couple of rematches. They've all been good. He's always been hard tested, and that's just what's naturally going to happen when you fight the number one mandatories and the other belt holders. We know that. So he's always been exciting. Jermell Charlo put up one of the biggest stinkers in modern boxing in a long time against a 1-2 combo, uh, 168 stumpier Canelo, right? And he has not won himself any favors with his own fan base. Whether you want to say the American fan base, the more hip hop fan base, whatever, the Texan fan base, he hasn't won any favors. Now he has to allow uh, that lack of trust and the naysaying to calm down. So what you would do is you can do two things. One, immediately get back on it and start bringing that excitement so people can forgive you, or let the heat calm down, let people forget you, let other things happen, and then come back. Right, and
Well,
that's the thing, though. He just made an expected 15 million. You don't think he's gonna want to travel the world and rekindle with his brother and have fun while things calm down? That's what I think is gonna happen. He's gonna enjoy it.
that's the thing. Is he a retired boxer? Because that's what people that are retired, that's what they do. They enjoy the fruits of their labor. They have a lot of money saved up or earned, and then they go on vacation. So that's the problem with these quote unquote active fighters is that are you going to be another Keith Thurman? Right? Because you got you okay, let's not go to Keith Thurman, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So going back to who his I had to look up who Jermell Charlo's IBF mandatory is. I went to box rec,
Mhm.
and I thought it was gonna be like Magomedov Kurbanov or Israel Madrimov, right? Because
Yeah,
remember,
yeah. Is it in Madrigal?
none of those guys are. In fact,
Huh.
the guy who is his mandatory is a guy named Bakram Murtaza.
Yeah, Mortisaliev.
So I went to his box rec, and this dude has fought absolutely nobody to
Yeah,
be an IBF mandatory. Now, this is
yeah.
one of the things that I have a problem with the IBF, even though I just said like 10 minutes ago that they're one of my favorite organizations because of their second day weigh-in, their rehydration class, and they enforce their mandatories. I want to focus on that last part. Sometimes who they enforce their mandatories, I have a problem with because I don't understand who they fought. They did this a while ago with Errol Spence when he had the IBF. There was a guy named like Konstantin Ponomarev or something like that, and
Hmm.
he was Errol's mandatory for like 3 years, and that guy never enforced his status after the Carlos Ocampo win.
Hmm.
The IBF, I don't know how they go about ranking their fighters, but when I look at who Jermell Charlo's mandatory is, right? Bakram Mortazaliev, he's 21-0 with 15 KOs, right? He's from Russia and he's training out of Robert Garcia's ex gym in Oxnard, California, probably ran by Igis Klimas and that franchise area. So it lets me know that this guy probably has like Joel Diaz around him getting like great tutelage and experience. But when I look at his resume, I don't even know any one of these fighters. His last fight, which he fought back in 2022, so this fighter who's Jermell's mandatory has not been fighting anybody since almost 11 months. And the last fighter that he fought was Roberto Valenzuela Jr.
Uh-huh.
And then prior to that, he fought twice in 22. He fought a guy named Ahmed Sheikho. Sheikho. One guy was 20 with 3 losses, 20-0 with 3 losses. The other guy was 18 wins and 7 losses. When Errol Spence was a champion for the IBF, he had a guy named Konstantin Ponomarev, something like that. And that guy was like 39-0. But when you look at his resume, it was nobody. It was like only fighters from like his native country, and they had like 16 wins, 5 losses, 16 wins, and 9 losses. It was something like this guy. So I'm saying, like, how do you have Magomedov Kurbanov, right? And how do you have Israel Madrimov below this dude for the IBF sanction? So I'm like, damn, IBF, I love y'all, but come on, Daryl. People is like, how do you guys go about ranking these guys? You just go for the fighter that has the highest pockets or something? Because how
No,
is
it's actually
how is this
uh,
guy mandatory? And I'm like,
it's actually the
you're
opposite.
gonna strip him to give this guy who's unknown to the whole world over an undisputed fight?
It's the opposite. You have it completely wrong, the homie Ricky. You think it's whoever pays the most at the IBF will get the shot at the top. No, the IBF has, for the most part, been an organization that's been very favored by the rest of the world. Not particularly in the United States, because you'll see a lot of the names under the IBF are going to be foreigners. Eastern Europeans, British, every other part of the world, except many of them Americans, right? And the reason for that is because I think they may be established over there more so than anything, but it's because they're very strict uh, and unwavering when it comes to forcing their mandatories. They will strip you quickly if you don't if you don't honor your mandatory fights. So in America, you know that, but the business of boxing is the biggest in America and in Britain. If you cannot use the money in the promotional side, the business side, to maneuver your fighters, your organization is not going to be the one that these promoters are going to want to use, because you're too strict. The WBA, the WBC, and the WBO, probably in the least of all of them, are the organizations that lend themselves out to marinating of fights, to forgiving fighters from taking on mandatories and enforcing them or penalizing them or stripping them of their belts. You just see it in modern years. Now, the IBF has been pulling some shenanigans with Jermell Charlo in particular, but that's because, again, Jermell Charlo is it has been going after all of the belts. Now, here's the other thing, though. Bakram Murtataziev, or however hard it is to say his name, one of the things that he can do is to vie for the opportunity to fight. He can actually demand that fight to take place, because he's been waiting there for 3 or 4 years. If it
Right.
hasn't happened, it's probably because he hasn't demanded it to take place, right? He's probably getting, paid a couple of bucks under the table, and his training camp is probably looking at it and saying, you know what, you're also not very well prepared for it, so let's prep for the right moment. Now, I think that's probably what's happening. They're probably thinking, it's easier to take some softer touches. But the fact of the matter is, if we look at all of the fighters in all of the organizations, the WBA, the WBC, and the WBO will have all the names that are more familiar to me, and probably many more fighters fighting for them than the IBF, because the IBF is very strict about it. So yeah, the IBF will probably never be as deep and to the names that we are familiarized with, but they are going to encompass a lot of global fighters. But we know that, there's some people that tend to think a lot of our fighters, if they ain't American, or if their last names are hard to pronounce, they ain't any good. I don't necessarily agree with that. I just think they're in different parts of the world. But nonetheless, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's unfair. I don't think it's unfair that Jermell Charlo, after having been waited out a year and a half for his hand to heal, to come back and fight for a cash grab, I don't think it's unfair to strip him, because he's holding up the divisions. He's getting leeway. And I don't find it fair that, oh, it took him 10 years to get there. Hey, that's the burden of being the undisputed champion. Heavy is the crown. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. That's how it should be. I don't care if they hold on to their belts or forever. They should get leniency. They shouldn't. They should actually fight more, because that's what happens when you have all of the belts. Every single fight, where you're an undisputed fighter, or even if you have a belt, just one belt, if they demand a fight on you, you know what that means? Money. You know what that means? The obligation to defend. It also means the opportunity to have more eyes on you. If Jamel Charlo decides to sit out a whole year because his hand hurts or whatever, or he just wants to go for a cash grab, hey, strip him. No pity for me.
All right, so a couple of things. The reason I bring up that it took Jermell Charlo 10 years is because that's how long it took him to become undisputed. I bring that up is because he threw all that away, that status, by having Canelo Alvarez. So I'm in agreement with you. It's not taking shots. All right. That's one. Two, the IBF is actually based here in the United States, in New Jersey. Okay. The president is an American, Daryl Peoples. So I know you said something about like they usually do great business with country far, and they usually no.
Yeah.
I just went to, so you're wrong about that. I went in just to their website, the IBF, right, on Google,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking at the top 15 fighters that they have for Jermell Charlo that are quote unquote like the ranking system. And one, they have Bakram Mortazalia, right? That's his mandatory. Number two is Jack Coquet. Number three is Erickson Lubin. Four is Joshua Kelly. Five is Jesus Ramos. Seven is Israel Madrimov, right? And then 15 is Xander Zayas. Okay. So you said because they deal with foreign affairs, usually fine. I don't know about you, but usually when you become a mandatory, that means you usually fought a fighter within their top 15, and that's how you got the number one spot. So, for instance, I just read you off a few names and his last two fights of Brakhan Mortazaliev and who he's fought. Guess what? None of those two fighters that he fought in last year, 11 months ago, talk about inactivity. None of those fighters were in the top 15. Erickson Lubin is number 3, and he fought a top 15 fighter, actually fighter number 5. Jesus Ramos. That's usually how you go about getting the number one spot. Two top 15 fighters fighting one another, then they move up the ranking system. Erickson Lubin should be number 1 over Bakram or Tazalia. You see? So you are wrong in that aspect. And that's what I said earlier about the IBF, even though I love them and what they do with their enforcing their mandatories, you're enforcing the wrong mandatories. Jermell showed you documentation of a hand injury. So that's why it gives them validation for a year. Now, it should be, no, dude, you should not be able to get a cash grab because you already held up because this is a physical sport. Injuries.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right. So you should have, again, he ruined his status that he worked so hard to get to become a pound for pound fighter just to lose to Canelo Alvarez. That was the big move. One of the, in the beginning that I talked about before you guys hopped in is Jermell Charlo is usually a calculative person, right? Who's always been about legacy. That's why he stayed his whole career at 154. Because he wanted to become undisputed at 154, which took him 10 years. It was almost a sense of desperation for him to take the Canelo fight. Because it's been a fight that he's wanted for a lot of years back, between 2015 2017. And when him and Canelo were both champions at the respective weight class at 154, so he didn't want to fail at an opportunity to fight in Canelo Alvarez. But the problem was, since he never got it then, I guess he wanted to do it now, especially since his brother passed up on it. So he decided, fuck it, the juice is worth the squeeze. Like you said, he got paid $15 million. But that was the wrong business move because, look, that Canelo fight was always going to be there. But you know what fight might not be there? The Terrence Crawford fight. And you also, along the process, not only now does Terrence Crawford not want to fight you, like you said, people, your people, black people, Texas, they don't fuck with you, right? And now they're not going to fuck with you even now after that fucking performance because you didn't show heart and bravery. Now you lost that prestigious title against of being undisputed because they stripped you of one of the titles. So now you might just get stripped another one. So fighting Canelo was the wrong business move. If you knew down the line that might have been $30 million. For instance, had he fought off his hand injury, had he fought Tszyu, and let's say he beaten Tszyu, and let's say Terrence Bud Crawford beats Errol Spence, that fight is on the line. That's another pay-per-view fight. Bud Crawford versus Jermell. And let's say Jermell were to beat him. Now Jermell just is still undisputed. He moves probably number 1 or number 2 in the pound for pound rankings because that's not usually how they have Bud Crawford hella high up there next to Canelo 1A, 1B. Jermell gets much more momentum. He has a pay-per-view. And then the Canelo fight is always there. Canelo should have been the last on the line, not the first. So he messed up everything that he's worked so hard to get. That's where those 10 years come from. The IBF, Bakram Murtazalia should not be as mandatory. It honestly should be Erickson Lubin because, again, he beat another top 5 fighter in the IBF ranking system. Bakram hasn't fought in 12 months, bro.
Yeah, but yeah. But see, you have even that part has to be consistent. Even that part has to be consistent because if you can give a champion a year and a half to not defend, and in fact for years, that guy's been waiting in line. Then you know what? You're not just gonna willy nilly just take him off there because some guy started fighting most recently because that guy's been waiting. You see, there's actual money being paid.
If these guys that he's fighting,
look, there's actual money being paid on the sanctioning fees, the homie Ricky. They have to respect that.
I know. So again, when I said earlier, is this guy just paying the most money? Because based on his resume, there's no top fighter that he's fought.
No, he's not paying the most money. No, he's paying consistently his dues.
I know, but it doesn't matter. You can consistently pay your dues to get ranked and move up the rankings, but guess what? It also is based on resume and who you fought and who you beaten. He's beaten nobody. Again, his last fight was on December of 2022. It's about close to 11 months now ago. He bought a guy who was 20-3. March of 2022, Amachenko, 18 wins, 7 losses. So you're paying sanctioning bodies for those two guys that are not even in the top 50? 2021, Kyrie Gray, 16 wins, 5 losses. Manny Woods, 16 wins, 9 losses. How are these fights even rated for the IBF? So why are you paying these fees? It doesn't make any sense. Whereas if I go to Erickson Lubin, right, who's rated number 3, 16-2, he just fought a top 5, top 10 fighter, undefeated, Jesus Ramos, 20-0. He just fought twice this year, Luis Cuba Arias, who he knocked out, 20 wins and 3 losses. And then he just fought Sebastian Fundora, and then Jason Rosario, and then Terrell Geisha. See, that's how you move up the ranking and any sanctioning body. What Erickson Lubin is doing. If you compare that to Bakram, bro.
I'm not trying to tell you. I'm not trying to justify it, homie Ricky. All I'm saying is that one guy. Look. Let's go back to where. Look, what I'm trying to say is that it's not necessarily who you fought at this moment. It's the fact that the guy has been paying his dues for 4 years, and he still hasn't had the shot. Remember, I think we just had this issue at heavyweight just a few years ago. I think Dylan White was a mandatory to Tyson Fury for.
No, he was a mandatory for Deontay Wilder. And did he ever get the Wilder fight?
No, he didn't. And then I think Tyson Fury beat him, right? So then he was the mandatory for Tyson Fury, right? And when he kept asking for it, I think he considered suing them, right, for the shot because he was just being ignored. He was going back and forth. There was rematches between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, and long story short, Tyson Fury tried to screw him on a good one, and I think he was trying to overlook him to fight who knows who, maybe Anthony Joshua or whatever, and that's when he said, "Hey, you know what? I'm next," and that's when he threatened for legal action. So when you've been waiting for 4 years, right? for this shot. They're not just going to take it away from you because you deserved it. One, B, you never got the opportunity to, and C, all these years you've consistently, right, had the been paying these dues. So they're asking for a lawsuit, and the IPF is not, the biggest, longest. The longest lived organization of all, so likely their coffers, their financial coffers, are not the deepest. Most of these organizations don't really carry, much money. Like most recently, I read the WBO's. They had a convention, and you look at how much they make. In the Philippines, they made like 20,000 from their fighters. In the UK, they made like 50,000. Like it's not like a bunch of money. They're not dealing in the millions, but they're good hefty sums. I think the president makes only like 100,000. He was making 80, and now they afforded him like no, he was getting paid $8,000 a month, and now they bumped him up to 10,000. He's still the least paid president of an organization. So they're not really dealing with the millions of dollars. So any threat of legal action, especially one of recompense for injustice, is gonna cost them a lot. So that Murtasaliev is probably holding on to something there. Now, I'm not trying to deny that Erickson Lubin has been putting in the work, and in fact, it's probably more likely that Erickson Lubin will get the shot to fight that guy for an opportunity for the IBF
That's
154.
actually how it should go.
Yeah. Because one guy hasn't, the other guy's been climbing rank, but Erickson Lubin cannot just supplant the position, the number one position of a guy that's been holding it for 4 years. Let me ask you something. Can we go back 4 years to who that guy fought then to get to first place? Because that's crazy. Those names that you called out, that's incredible.
He's fought nobody, bro. I mean, fuck. I just closed all the tabs, but
4 years ago, so maybe in 18, wow, wow. Wow, wow.
he's fought.
Maybe Jorge Fortea, 20-1. Maybe 20-1 is when he got it. I know he got it in 2019, so maybe that's it. But look, the fact of the matter is, look at all of these names, the homie Ricky, Carlos Galvin, Robson Assis, Kenneth McNeil, Norberto Gonzalez, Elvin Ayala, Jorge Fortea, Manny Woods, Kiari Gray, Ahmed Sheiko. These are names that we're not familiar with, nor do they sound very American.
No, it doesn't matter if they're American. I'm not saying these guys don't have skills, but that's exactly what I'm gonna say. These guys have no skills, bro. Erickson Lubin, he fought in that same timeline of this guy Bakram Murtazaliev, right? Who's Jamel Charlo's mandatory. He's fought in two undefeated fighters, Jesus Ramos and Sebastian Fondora, during the same amount of time. How is this guy number one in the IBF ranking sanctioning fees, and then Erickson Lubin's like in the number three?
Just because of his dues, homie Ricky. That's it. That's it. He climbed up. It was probably.
Like I said, is this guy just paying more money?
No.
It really
no.
just comes down to that. He just been
yeah. No, he's paid. He's paid the more money over the years. Yeah.
And who he fought.
Yeah, he's paid, but you see, the way that you phrase it is paying more money makes it seem like he's actually paying more money, which is insinuating that he's being charged or that he's offering a little extra as an incentive to reserve his position. No, I just think it's more money over the years, and sanctioning fees. But yeah, I think the IBF really got screwed.
Paying more money.
Well, in the long run, yes, but there's different ways of paying more money. Right? Like slipping money under the table. And I don't think he's doing that, because you look at those names, I assure you, he ain't made much money in all those years, especially with those names and the fact that I've never seen him fight. Maybe we have, but I don't remember him.
I don't know.
But but so here's the thing, homie Ricky. I think he's gonna get stripped of that belt, right? Or maybe they could get him. They should be able to get him on the cheap. I'm not too sure who his promoter is, but they might be able to get him on the cheap. Now, here's the thing, homie Ricky. I'm a lemonade from lemons kind of guy, right? If they strip Jamel Charlo because he wants to take a vacation in, Boca Raton, Florida, or Montenegro, whatever. No, whatever it is that happens, whatever he wants to do after, you know, laughing at the world and running off like a bank thief with the ill-gotten gains that he made from fighting Canelo and skipping the line. One thing I will say is this: if he decides to take a little vacation, right, he can actually come back after they strip him of a belt or two, because now he, you know, maybe they strip him of another one, and he can fight to get those belts back. I think 154 is still enough of it provides so many good possible fights and names that he can actually come back and try to make a run at getting them back. And all of those fights are gonna be good because they're popular, well tested names. But if he decides to go at 154, it's also one of those divisions that is not the deepest at the moment, or at least it has a lot of names that I'm unfamiliar with. That's why I won't say it's not deep. It's just they're unfamiliar for me because I don't know all of those fighters. Maybe there's some depth there. Maybe there's guys that are come forward pressure fighters. Maybe there's out boxers. Maybe there's puncher boxers. I myself don't know. I just know that I'm unfamiliar with them. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Because if you put on a bunch of names that we've never heard and they're all trying to climb to the top, somebody's going to come out on the top and we're going to become familiarized with all of them. All we need to do is have these guys on television. And I think 160 will start becoming something rather good. Because I think that's really what a lot of people miss, right? Having these fights visible to us, having these names become familiar to us. And the best way to get them familiarized with us is to put them on television. And I think with somebody like Bartasaliev, he must come on the cheap because he sure ain't done nothing to make himself a household name.
So wait, somehow you somewhere in this conversation between Jamel, you snuck in being at middleweight right now?
Well, yeah, because that's the other thing, homie Ricky. You don't actually think that Jamel Charlo could go up to 160 to do something there and fight like Adames, who is actually a PBC fighter, if I'm not mistaken, to fight a crossover fight with top rank. Now that they're going through financial hardships over there at PBC, you don't think they might actually send one of their fighters out to try and get some belts from what they probably see as weaker competition? I think they would for money and for survival.
I don't know anything about that. We were still talking about Jamel, and I think Carlos Adames is a Showtime fighter, so that's an in-house fight between him and
Yeah,
Jamel. So,
yeah, 160 though.
but yeah, you said ESPN though.
No, no, no. What I'm saying is that Jermel Charlo could actually fight at 160 as he's coming back down in weight and test himself out at 160 and see if it's a good match for him. Because dropping down 2 weight classes again, 154 with men like Tszyu, who I believe he ducked already, and with Jamel and with Terrence Crawford, who's likely going to be a hell of a fight for him if he decides to take it. I think he might just be like, you know what? Let me do 160 because it's not deep. I think it came from you that 160 is not a deep division.
Yeah, sorry, the middleweight division is not a stacked division. It's
Yeah.
not deep at all.
Yeah.
I talked about it earlier that it really just consists, at least when you go to BoxRec, it really consists of Chris Eubank and Liam Smith as top 10 fighters at 160. Like, no disrespect, but who has Liam Smith beaten at middleweight to put him in the top 5? Who has Chris Eubank beaten to be in the top 5? That's crazy. Zanibek, right? He's a top 5 fighter. Carlos Adames is a top 5 fighter. What should we call it? Hell, even Jamal Charlo is a top 5 fighter because they've actually fought and campaigned against multiple 160 pounders, right? Like, for instance, this is how they have it right now. They have Chris Eubank. This is BoxRec. Number 1 at middleweight. Number 2 is Liam Smith. 3 is Merim Nursultanov. Number 4 is Carlos Adames, the unified champion, who should be number 1. At number 5 is Zanibek Alim Kanuli. Number 6 is Michael Sarafa. Number 7 is Austin Amel Williams. Number 8 is Elijah Garcia. Number 9 is the guy who just got knocked out by Zani Beck, Vincenzo Gualtieri. If I go down the list, number 14 is Shane Mosley Jr. Leon Williams is 16. I'm trying to look at these names. Number 25 is Aaron McKenna. Uh, Number 29 is Vladimir Hernandez, who is a guy who just beat this guy named Truck Simpson, also from Baltimore. Number 39 is a Brazilian Esquivel Falcao. Because I'm just going on based on names that I kind of know or I've seen fight. Number 50 is Steve Rose. So where's that Canadian that beat him? Number 34 is Maciej Sulecki. 33 is Jovis Gonzalez. 30 is Felix Cash. 29 is Stephen Butler. I'm trying to find that Canadian that just fought him earlier this Friday. So I can't find him. But what I'm saying is it's not a stacked division. It's a horrible division. If you're putting Chris Eubank in front of the unified champion in Zanibek Alim Kanuli. And even then, Zanibek Alim Kanuli, he's 15-0 and he's unified. You would think this motherfucker's Lomachenko or some shit. Zanibek has Kazakh style, right? He's from Uzbekistan. He's 30 years old. He's fought in Stephen Butler, Denzel Bentley, Hazan and Dam Injakam, Rob Bryant, and that's essentially it. And then this guy Vincenzo Gualtieri, and this guy's already unified. That's how I know at 160, it's a sorry ass division. It's a terrible division. So,
and that's why I'm trying to say that perhaps Jermell Charlo.
Why would Charlo risk going to middleweight and fighting, let's say, a Zanibek Alim Kanuli, and risk getting beat with him when he can go fight 154 at Tszyu? Look, how much did he weigh against Canelo? Like the weigh-in?
Yeah, I think it was like 167 or something.
Okay, 167.
167 2 or something.
That means he's still basically a 154 pounder. He can cut down. He can easily cut down.
I wouldn't say easily.
He can easily cut down.
That's 2 weight divisions.
Because from what I saw when he was fighting Canelo Alvarez, right? He didn't look big. His stomach, where Jermell usually has abs, it just looked like his belly was filled with a bunch of water. That's it. Because there was no need to cut weight. To be honest with you, if this was just a one-stop, one-fight, there's no really a reason to add muscle. Just let your natural body be natural right there, and then just focus on technique and speed and a game plan. You know, Jermell didn't lose speed. He didn't suddenly punch any harder. That's it. So it'll be a 154 pounder. Is it easy? No. It's never easy to cut weight. So that was a wrong phrase. But 154 is still his weight division. Maybe.
So there is some history to that we can hearken to gauge whether or not it is possible for Jermell Charlo to make 154 after long layoffs. And he does, because for the past 4 years, really, he's only fought once a year. 2020,
you already told me. Never mind. It was a question about Tszyu.
In 2020, he fought Jason Rosario. 2021, he fought Brian Castaño. 2022, he fought Brian Castaño again. And 2023, after a year and a half, his longest layoff, most recently, he fought Saul Santos Alvarez Bergan. So I think he can. I don't think it's necessary to consider Jermell Charlo a person that struggles too much after making, after having long layoffs. Because I would say a year is a long layoff. It's a lot of inactivity. And for the most part, the homie Ricky, you can say that these long layoffs have taken place that really haven't affected him much, because he's gotten to fight, especially the last few years, and a couple of rematches with the same fighters, right? Like, for example, with Brian Castaño, which were the fights right before Saul Santos Alvarez Bergan, he fought that guy twice after 1 year layoffs. So he didn't really have to try to work on new things. which may affect, you know, your dedication to making weight or to trying hard at learning something with the guy, because guess what, you already have some familiarity with the guy. Maybe you're just working on cutting weight and that's it, or you know, maybe saying, okay, I know what my mistakes were, I see them, I know how to correct them, I don't have to try working on correction, I just have to do what I didn't do in the first fight. So I think it's more forgiving for him when you're having long layoffs and you're rematching the same guy. But he's always fought at 154. Now, fighting a guy like Alvarez, two weight classes higher, whether you know, whether you think he just drank a lot of water or he just took it easy and didn't really work out so much, whether that's what you think happened uh, or not, now we know that he is a fighter that fought with no courage and has been paid handsomely, and his brother is going through a lot of problems. He's gonna want a break to work with that and to enjoy life. It may actually be quite hard for him to come just down to 154, and even if he does, he might not be as competitive, right? Because his last fight didn't really teach him anything. He just taught him how to like block or walk back or protect yourself from an onslaught of punches from a heavier guy. But I don't think the Canelo fight is really going to work in his favor because he really didn't try anything in there to learn how he would pay the hard way for his mistakes. I think it was such an easy fight for him, that because he was so inactive in that whole fight, that once he comes back down, he's going to come down and really have to make weight against very tough fighters, and he didn't learn nothing from fighting the best fighter in the world. I think Canelo, right, learned a lot from Money Mayweather, but I don't trust Jamel Charlo learned equally under Canelo, under Saul Santos Alvarez Berrigan, and I think it's going to affect him. And I think he may just want to make a pit stop at 160 to see how competitive he is before he takes on real killers like Tszyu and maybe even Terence Crawford, and maybe even Virgil Ortiz.
No, I don't know, man. I don't really agree with that. That Jamel didn't learn anything from the Canelo fight. I
What do
think
you
that
think he learned?
well, he learned actually a lot of things.
How
One
so?
is that his defense can allow him to
To
go
serve.
12 rounds with Canelo Alvarez. That
Uh,
right there is that's a very big statement because it goes like this. It lets me know that he saw, even though that I'm not gonna say that the moment was too big enough for him. I'm just gonna say that Canelo was too good enough for him, but he anytime it goes like this, and anybody that like fights and goes in there with people that have a whole lot of experience. Anytime that you can see a fighter who's much better than you and you can block all those punches, it's not something to get deterred from, right? It lets you actually know that, bro, even though I wasn't at my best, I still went 36 minutes, 12 rounds with the best in the world, given the circumstances. And if you go look at Jermel's Charlo's defense, his defense was impressive. The biggest problem was he wasn't able to naturally build his offense that he were normally accustomed to seeing. And that's because he didn't want to open up. But when he started throwing his left hooks, his timing was there. It's just the power wasn't. Canelo took those punches well, almost like if he was just walking through those punches. Again, we're no naturally we naturally see Jamel throw between 400 to 700 punches. He's never really a volume guy. He still was able to outthrow Canelo Alvarez. The problem was they just didn't hold the same weight as if he were at 154. That's the biggest problem, the weight. So you can be like, well, what does that have to do anything when it comes down to fighting Tszyu? Well, two things. He's going to be able to block Tszyu's punches, and he knows that Tszyu is naturally smaller than Canelo. Jamel will open up more, which is, I'm not saying he's not going to lose. I'm just saying that it'll make for a better fight. And again, if I can go 12 rounds with Canelo, I sure as hell, if push comes to shove and I need to survive, that he's smart enough, if bust with a hard ass shot, smart enough to take a knee. The same intelligence that Tim Bradley showed against Ruslan Provodnikov. So these are things that are actually great measuring sticks and lets you know that not only is his defense impeccable, because he blocked almost all of Canelo's punches. I don't think Canelo really landed anything. Look at his face. The only thing that he got hurt was with that fucking 4 or 2 at the top of his forehead, and then got hit with an uppercut. Almost everything, if you go watch those punches, he blocked all of them. All of Canelo's punches. I'm not saying his face wasn't scarred or had some reddening. I didn't see any inflammation. So
Yeah, the homie Ricky. I get all that. So he learned how to shell up, but he didn't learn how to fight, the homie Ricky. And you know what? And you know who is learning how to fight? You know who is learning how to fight? Tim Tszyu is learning how to fight. Tim Tszyu is learning how to fight. Tim Tszyu has great defense, and he keeps it simple. Tim Tszyu can block and he can throw punches. The fact that Jermell Charlo is walking away with nothing but a moral victory um is not enough. It's not enough. The fact that you can shell up for 12 rounds is not enough. We already talked about it. You can actually throw a lot of more punches than the next guy if they're just punches to swat the guy away from you. But if you're not throwing to win, if you're not throwing to fight, it doesn't matter. Those are just get away from me punches. We didn't see what a lot of people call dog. We sure didn't see a lion in there. We saw uh, a guy shell up. I don't think it's impressive that you just shell up. It's good if you shell up, if you punch, if it's good if you block and parry, if you throw punches in between. He didn't do that. Moral victory is not good enough, in my opinion, against a guy that's good at blocking and using his range and placing his punches well, and is learning much more on, and is much more frequently fighting than you are. Tim Tszyu, you just, I believe you may even have stated it in this live that you think Tim Tszyu is fighting a lot like Canelo. Okay, even more reasons to think that Jermell Charlo is in trouble and coming down to 154 and fighting that guy. And God forbid that Tim Tszyu is occupied with another guy, and that the only guy at 154 for him to fight would be somebody like Terence Crawford, because it's not gonna work if you just shell up. Nobody wins fights by shelling up. I'm not impressed by shutting up. I'm not impressed by being pushed to the rope and just covering up and blocking most punches. It's not going to win you the fight. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not impressed with how he looked. I hope he's competitive once he comes back. I'm just uncertain where he's going to come back, because 154 is going to require him to be completely optimal. And I don't think he learned that. I, in fact, think Tim Tszyu learned so much more by fighting a very crafty fighter in Brian Mendoza than Jermell Charlo learned by fighting a very simple 1-2 fighting Canelo that did not do anything special, nothing that we haven't seen. If you cannot fight Canelo Alvarez with bringing something to the table, even though you've watched him fight for 60 or so fights and there's the most film on him than anybody, then you're never going to learn. If you can't learn watching film, I don't know what to say about it. It's crazy. It's crazy. Jermell Charlo, he looked incredibly bad out there.
I don't know, man. I don't really think so. Was this vintage? No, this looked like a guy who had an escape in his mind that, oh, I am naturally the smaller fighter, so he fought very scared. It happens. I think if he were to rematch Canelo, he would give you a completely different fight, because now he knows that he can take that his defense, that Canelo is not such a hard hitter where it was penetrating through his guard. And if Tim Tszyu, yeah, man, it's gonna be a good fight, dude. It's gonna be a good fight.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, homie Ricky, if you need two outings, right, to learn in the ring, that you just have to question that guy's ring IQ. That's the opposite of an intelligent fighter in there. An intelligent fighter is aware and conscientious of what is going on. He has to be self-aware to know how it looks like to outside eyes. How is the? I mean, you must ask yourself this, though, homie Ricky. When Jermell Charlo was fighting Canelo Alvarez, did he not know that he was losing every round? Did he not have an idea how bad it looked for him to just shell up and not throw punches? Did it not look? Was he not aware that when he threw a 5-punch combo, he actually landed a couple of times at Canelo, like 2 out of the 5 punches, or that he threw those hooks, whether or not they harmed Canelo? Did he not know that he landed, and that every time you land a punch, you get a point? Did he not know that? Did he not know that he didn't have to go for a knockout? That all he had to do is throw punches and move, and he'd do well.
No, but he did try to go for the knockout. Look how hard those left hooks that he threw on Canelo in the last couple of rounds. It just, again, his power just wasn't there. No, man, I just think a lot of people expected more.
Of course.
And that's just a problem. But,
of course, he's undisputed, homie Ricky. He's undisputed. The guy has been calling it. You've been calling out the guy because of personal issues for about 5 years, right? You've been this loud-mouthed fighter that's proved that you're very adept and competitive and you're powerful, right? Of course, people expected him to be much more competitive. What else can you expect, homie Ricky? We paid what, $90 because we thought he was that guy.
Nah,
we thought. Honestly, what did you think?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I was quite impressed with Jermell Charlo's defense. I was like, damn, he's actually his defense. Look, you gotta understand. I was more impressed with Jermell Charlo than I was with Callum Smith. You see, Callum Smith was bigger than Canelo. Callum Smith is actually a 168 pounder, and he couldn't do nothing. And his defense was very good in terms of just blocking. But Jermell Charlo, being the smaller man, his arms didn't swell up. He has tough skin. His body is strong. That's what it showed. That means when Tim Tszyu throws his punches, I don't know if they're going to be able to penetrate through Jermell Charlo's guard because Canelo's couldn't. Does Tim Tszyu have better punch selection than Canelo? No. Does he hit harder than Canelo? No. Is he more craftier than Canelo? No.
Wait. Let's address that. Let's address that right there. So,
does he have a better chin than Canelo? No. Does he have more experience in big championship fights in opposition than Canelo? No. So Tim Tszyu is going to bring nothing new to the table that Jermell has never seen before because he just fought the greatest pound for pound.
Okay, so then Jermell Charlo, he's gonna know that Tim Tszyu does not have the power that Canelo does. He's gonna know that he's gonna have learned that he can shell up real good, and you know what he's gonna do?
He's gonna open up.
He's gonna open up, and that's when Tim Tszyu is gonna knock him out. He's gonna go over there and destroy the guy. No, that's what's gonna happen.
If only you think that Tim Tszyu can do something that Canelo couldn't.
Yes, I believe so. He's going to be able to fight a Canelo type style against a guy who's now starting to open up because guess what? He can take the guy's punches. He does not have Canelo's power. So he's going to open up. And you know what? Tim Tszyu, who fights a lot to some extent as Canelo Alvarez, is also a guy who has great understanding of his range. He is also very defensive himself. He's very creative with his punches.
But here's another thing. When Jermell Charlo opened up against the little moments against Canelo, his defense was still intact. It's not like he just opened up and threw recklessly. No, it was always a catch and shoot. a counter
Look,
is
homie
just
Ricky,
now. Listen. Just
but
because he
so is
beat,
Tim Tszyu.
just because Tim Tszyu beat Brian Mendoza, okay. No disrespect to Brian, but he ain't never been a champion.
Hey,
He's
homie
not.
Ricky, can you go back? Yeah. But let me ask you something. Can you go back a couple of lives? I think you actually made. I think you titled a video under under Brian Mendoza,
Yeah.
right? Can you see what the title is called?
Well, Brian Mendoza continued to shock the boxing world, and Tim
Okay,
Tszyu.
I wonder why do you think you asked that question?
It's a question because
I know. Why do you think you asked that question?
he's been on a good win streak.
Exactly. You were impressed by that win streak. It wasn't just a good win streak. It was a pretty dominant win streak.
No, it's a good win streak because it's simple.
Was he knocking out these guys?
Because he's knocking out these guys that
Okay.
he wasn't supposed to knock out.
He was supposed to knock him out.
He wasn't supposed to knock him out.
Okay, there you go. That says a lot about that guy. You're just saying that he was on good. You said good.
What I just said is that look, you gotta
Look,
understand.
look, the homie Ricky. This is where you and I differ, right? You're impressed. Wait up. You're impressed. Wait up. It sounds like you're impressed when a guy beats the guys that he's supposed to. But when a guy beats the guys he's not supposed to, and he does so through knockouts, you're not impressed.
You are great.
I'm not saying he's great. I'm just saying he had a great run.
It's a good run.
It's a good run. That's funny though. That's hilarious. Then let me ask you, what would have been great? What would have been greater?
Because I don't think you understand what the definition of good means. Good means you're good. It doesn't mean
no. You think I don't know? I'm just saying. I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question. What would have been a great run for Brian Mendoza then? How come you don't answer that question?
No disrespect to Sebastian Fundora, but he is not a great champion. He's not even a champion. He's a good fighter. That's what you want me to say. He's a fucking freak of nature. Who's a guy who is fucking 6'8", fighting at 154 all bones. Doesn't like to fight tall.
And you know who Brian Fundora beat?
Hold on.
So who did Brian Fundora beat?
I can't. That's a great win for him.
Oh my god!
He's not a great fighter. Like he's not a champion. Now I'll tell you this.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Beat Jermell Charlo, I'm gonna be like, damn, that was a great victory because he just beat a great fighter. He just beat a good champion, a great champion at 154. So there's like, it's pretty simple. He's been on a very impressive run because he's upsetted people that he wasn't supposed to beat. I'm not gonna call him a great. I'm just gonna say that he's good. Good is a very well term to use to describe a person. A lot of people like to throw out the word great loosely. Okay.
No. I'm asking you, what would have made it great? What would have made Brian Mendoza's run great? I'm not saying that he's great, and I'm not even saying that he fought great fighters. I'm just saying what would have made his run great?
By beating great fighters. Just because you beat somebody who, like for example, this guy who fought Keyshawn Davis, Namir Albright. If he were to beat Keyshawn Davis, that's a great win for Namir, but doesn't mean that was a great victory in the general sense because Keyshawn Davis is not a great fighter. He's not a champion. He's just a highly touted, well-known prospect. It's a great win for Namir, but in the big sense of boxing, I mean, who the fuck was Keyshawn Davis? No disrespect to Jason Rosario, no disrespect to Sebastian Fundora, but what the fuck have they done in the great scheme of boxing? Nothing. They haven't even been champions. So for Brian Mendoza's level, that's a great resume for him. But in the big sense, it's nothing for Jermell.
Look, homie Ricky, it's funny. Look, just because he hasn't fought a great, because you're saying you're construing greatness by limiting only to champions, right?
No, and who you fought.
And who you fought. Okay, so Brian Fundora, he gets no credit for having fought Carlos Ocampo, Brian Mendoza, Erickson Lubin, undefeated 33-0 Sergio Garcia, 30-4 Jorge Cota, and Nathaniel Gallimore. He doesn't get any credit because none of those guys were champion. I get that.
Those are
I
good
get
wins.
that. I
You
know
want
they're
me to talk?
good wins, but I'm not trying to say that he's fought great fighters. I'm saying he had a great run. By your own definition,
That's not a
you
great
were,
win.
listen,
It's
you
a
were,
good win.
no, bro, you're ridiculous. You're
Listen, listen,
sometimes ridiculous.
listen.
You are saying by your own words, you said Brian Mendoza was beating people by knockout that he shouldn't have. Now we can argue back and forth if that impresses you or not.
No,
But if
it's
just the
impressive to
fact
me.
that you said, just
It's
the fact that you said he shouldn't have beaten first and then he beats him by knockout, I think that's very impressive. Now, if we just go back on using the terms good or great or whatever, that's just dealing with semantics because no one's talking about champions. The thing could be one and the same. We're not trying to say he beat Goliath, right? We're just trying to say if it was a great run. And I think it was a great run. If he had beaten Tim Tszyu, would it have been a great run? Or would it have been like, oh, well, Tim Tszyu wasn't a champion? What
yeah.
would you have said?
If Brian Mendoza
Okay, then they'll never get any credit. And guess what?
hold on, hold on. If Brian Mendoza had beaten Tim Tszyu, that would have been a great win for Brian Mendoza. But in the grand scheme of things, who had Tim Tszyu really beaten to be like, oh, that's a great fucking fighter? You couldn't be able to give him that title of
Yeah.
being.
By the same token, I told you, Jamel Charlo looked very bad. And you said, no, I'm very impressed because he had great defense. He had great defense. Ridiculous. You're saying he fought great. The fact that you're using the word great
I
in
didn't
one of
say
the
he
worst
fought great.
outings of both fighters in modern history, like it's ridiculous, homie Ricky. It
Hold
really
on,
is
hold on, hold on.
ridiculous. But
Well,
long
first,
story short, let's do this.
that Jermell fought great. I said that his defense was great.
There you go. And I'm saying the guy's great run was great. You're comparing you're using the word great for defense. I tell you, defense ain't nothing. Defense ain't gonna win you a fight. You get that? Not the way that you fought. So that's it. Let's go on to other things, right? Let's go on to other things. Knockout of the weekend. What was the most impressive thing to you? If there was a knockout or a fight, did you see the Golden Bull fights?
No,
So you didn't see Angel Ayala fight one of the Alvarado twins, Felix Alvarado?
I saw like 2, 3 rounds of it.
Okay, that was a great fight. In fact, I think you were about to talk
That
Keyshawn
was a
Davis.
good fight.
Yeah. I never said anything. Well, oh man, here you go. Whatever, bro.
Hold on.
Anyways,
United
whatever, bro. Whatever, bro. I'm not gonna argue about whatever. You can pull out the
It's
dictionary if
good.
you want. You can pull out the dictionary if you want. That's again. What I consider a great fight doesn't have to be in agreement with yours because that's all
Huh.
subjective.
Was Sergey Derenchenko versus
In
Tyson?
fact, in
Was that
fact,
a good fight?
here's the thing. In fact, if we're gonna go back and forth, here's the thing. That fight had more action and more violence than Brian. No, actually, I'm gonna take that back. No, that was good. That was good. Anyways, long story short, what was the most impressive thing that happened this weekend, like for you? Was it Tim Tszyu? Was it Brian Mendoza showing heart? Because man, I was very impressed. It was great the fact how Brian Mendoza was able to survive the 10th and 11th round, um, and even actually come back to win, in my eyes, very convincingly, the 12th round after he was seriously hurt, about to be stopped a couple of rounds prior. He goes over there, he starts boxing excellently when he's all cut up and bruised. After he was about to get, stopped, I think the ref actually walked over there. He told Brian, he said something to the effect of, show me something. And then all of a sudden, Brian Mendoza started showing something. He showed heart, he showed resilience, and he comes back after a 1 minute breather, goes to fight, goes and steps in again against Tim Tszyu, he's thinking he's about to finish him off. And then he wins the 12th round, boxing excellently and making Tim Tszyu miss every single punch that he threw. I thought that was great. Or in your case, it was good.
Yeah,
it was
no,
good.
no, no. So check this out.
So what was the standout moment for boxing for you? Can I tell
Yeah,
you what mine was?
it would be that he showed great toughness and heart
But
because
of all the fights though,
no, of that one, that out of all the fights, that
yeah,
was a very that was my a very good fight for me.
yeah,
I haven't seen that one. There's only been a select handful of fights that I'm like, wow. Um, a lot of that would give credit to Sam Goodman because he fought a guy named Miguel Flores. That was a very good competitive back and forth fight with Sam Goodman landing the better punches. And earlier in the year, on the Tim Tszyu, I think
he had fun also. Yeah,
or maybe Tony Harrison undercard. Sam Goodman also fought a guy named Aleem Reese, which was
yeah,
also a very good boxing match.
yep.
Well, Sam Goodman is a very entertaining fighter. But besides
Hmm.
the co-main event, yeah, the most impressive thing that I noticed, because mind you, Tim Tszyu is the favored fighter. Okay, he was favored basically by 5-1 odds, if not more, against Brian Mendoza. So I'm already, and I know based on what I've seen from Tim Tszyu, and especially in the manner that he destroyed Tony Harrison, I thought he was going to lose. That I was really impressed by his development. I hadn't been impressed with Tim Tszyu and Terrell Gachet. I don't really care too much about Carlos Ocampo because I know that he wasn't shit. And to be honest with you, you owe me $5,000 because I told you he was gonna get knocked down the first round. So I wasn't impressed by Carlos Ocampo. I don't care how he went and did competitive versus Sebastian Fundora. That lets me know Sebastian Fundora is not that guy. Anyway, right? Brian,
Well, I mean, styles make fights, so
I was impressed by Brian Mendoza's toughness. Because if there was ever a way to quit, if there was ever a moment to take a knee, if there was ever a moment to say no mas, Brian Mendoza could have easily said that in that Tim Tszyu fight, especially in that 10th, especially even in the 11th.
in
But
Devon,
absolutely not. He dig down deep and he gave it his all to almost. I mean, he lost decisively, 8-4,
yeah,
9-3. But he was like, I'm not gonna quit. If I can land maybe one punch, he never had quit in him. And he went out there on his shield. And in the 12th round, he started dancing like a drunken bastard.
yeah,
Moving, jumping up in the air, being very slick. And Tim Tszyu was perplexed. He didn't really know which, like, do I throw straight punches? Do I throw hooks? And he would just like, you know what? I've already won this fight. I am not gonna get caught by a fucking wild haymaker punch. I'm just gonna keep my distance, and that's what he did. And even then, Brian Mendoza showed the tricks up his sleeve that he was gonna do everything possible defensively, blocking, rolling, doing drunken bastard, jumping up and down, rolling punches, catching all the swatting and patting and hitting mitts, trying to catch all the punches. He threw everything that he had studied. He threw maybe 10, 15 different looks to Tim, and I was impressed. That's how you quote unquote survive. You throw all the tricks up your sleeve that you have in your arsenal and hope to God that maybe you land a punch or a few sequences. And guess what? He did. But Tim Tszyu took it well.
yeah.
I wish Jermel would have done that rather than just give one or two looks to Canelo, which was catch and shoot and then roll with the punches. I wish he would have everything because if there was ever a moment to show your greatness, Jermel should have done more what Brian Mendoza did. I was expecting more of a heart of a champion on Jermel's side. He showed great blocking ability, and that's about it. And a great left hook at times because he did land a few to Canelo, and Canelo didn't even see him. Luckily for Canelo, he's built like fucking Thanos, and he's got a great chin that when he got caught with the left hook, he was like, I've been hit by Triple G, bud. Nice try, Jermel, but you don't hit harder than GGG.
No way, not at all.
And for Brian Mendoza, he showed amazing heart. Now, if he had that same amazingness to his punch selection as he had to his craftiness in terms of defense and giving you different defensive looks, he might have had a different outcome. But yeah, man, Tim Tszyu is very patient, very reserved and relaxed, and he showed why he was a favorite into the fight. Welcome back in, Adam. Tim throws flirts maybe flurries of punches to knock guys out, but I don't think he has too much power. Flurries of punches. Yeah, I agree. I don't think he has that necessarily that one hitter quitter. I think in the Fox Sports in Australia, right, page when they had a face when they had a face down or a sit down. I'm not too sure what they called it. Brian Mendoza and I think the guy that was playing the Max Kellerman role, I forgot his name, but he asked Brian Mendoza who hits harder, and he goes, "Well, Brian said I hit harder than Tim because if you look at my knockout performances, they're off based off one punch. I actually knock and sleep dudes out with one hitter quitter." And then Tim, the camera panned to Tim, and Tim said, "Fair enough. I'm not gonna sit here and argue with him who has the harder hit. But if he's just looking for that one punch, he's got a lot coming to him." And then Brian, clarified. He goes, "No, I'm not saying that I'm just looking for that one punch. No, if you look at my knockouts, yes, it is one punch, but I set up traps." And then Tim Tszyu was like, "Fair enough. So yeah, to that point, Adam, I do think that he doesn't. I think he doesn't have that one hitter quitter, but he's got great power and pop in both of his punches, which makes him even dangerous, right? Because Wilder is always dangerous because he has that right hand from hell, whether it's a straight or a looping, 4 or a 2, but you don't really fear too much of his left hand. You don't really fear of a left uppercut, you know. Now I know he put down Fury with a 2, and then he threw a check 3 to put him down in the first round, but you don't really know Wilder as a left hook. I would rather be, I guess, not ambidextrous, but I would rather have pop in both punches that are respectable, that I can still grab your attention, and I think that's what Tim Tszyu has. So yeah, I don't think he has the greatest power, but he has very good, respectable pop that you can't just try to take one hand away because he's a 2-armed bandit. You know what I'm saying? So Adam says, "Hey guys, I'm home now." Yeah, man. Sounds like you got your phone charged. Haha. But yeah, man, it's gonna be no. But that going back to what you were saying, Speed, I was really impressed with. That is Brian Mendoza's determination to not,
Yeah,
and that
that was
will,
incredible.
yeah, that will is very rare nowadays to see. You see, we saw it with Jaime Munguia and Darenchenko. Munguia's unwillingness to get knocked down, even to get knocked out, and still come back and show that resolve where I'm just gonna still show my toughness and throw the punches and dog it out.
Yeah,
So
that was incredible. I'm
that
telling
was
you,
amazing. Yeah.
at the highest of levels, I don't think I've seen that in a very long time. And even if I have seen that, it did not it did not look as spectacular. Um, what Brian Mendoza
That was
did,
a cool fight, man.
it was so inspiring. I was like, eh, man. I mean, it really didn't live up to the expectation. I'm not too sure why Tim Tszyu
What
was.
do you think?
No. I'm not. Well, the odds, right? I don't think. Well, I guess the odds did live up to what they expected. But what I'm saying is, I really don't understand why the odds would have been so much heavily in favor of Tim Tszyu. I mean, for the most part, you just said that he's never fought anybody that they should get that much credit for.
Tony
I
Harris.
agree. I agree with Mr. Adam Hurley for the most part. He really isn't a concussive puncher. So that we can say, oh, well, he's also got the one hitter quitter thing working for him. He really doesn't. And Brian Mendoza was coming off a hot streak, so it's like I would have thought the odds would have been much closer. But you're saying they were 5-1. Did you say they were 5-1?
Well, again, it might have been even more because, like I said,
Wow.
the odds for Brian Mendoza were to win. Like if you put 100, you would win 500 back. So Tim Tszyu was like 7-1 favorite. I'm not too sure. I would have to look it up, but yeah, it was pretty wide. Well, there were thinking he was gonna win by knockout because before the
Wow.
fight started, the odds for Tim Tszyu to win by decision was like at plus 350. So, which is
Did
that
that make sense to you? Does that make sense to you, knowing the history of both fighters when they were meeting. Obviously you always have to give some kind of favor for the
Was
guy who's fighting in the backyard, but that heavily favored, huh?
Yeah, he was a 7-1 favorite.
Wow.
Tim Tszyu is minus 750, which means you have to put $715 to win a
To get
100.
100, yeah.
Conversely, for Mendoza, he was plus 450. So every $100 you put, you win 450. So yeah, 5-1. No, I think that was just because if you look at it for a 12-round fight, I mean, how many rounds did Tim Tszyu win? 8-1. It's an 8-1
Mhm.
favorite. So
Mhm.
the casinos, they usually know what they're about. So they follow where the money is going to heavily one sided. That influences people, and then also they have their opening odds, which is their predictions. But yeah, no, man, I think it was fair based on what the fight saw. Don't get it twisted. While I was amazed by Brian Mendoza's will and determination to never quit and see out the 12 rounds and show that toughness while still being competitive and throwing punches in his game plan of his own. Uh,
Mhm.
the fight was only competitive for like the first half, and then it was like utter domination, and you're like, damn, Brian Mendoza is a bad motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? So like the fight wasn't close, but Brian Mendoza always remained dangerous, and he didn't quit. He didn't, bitch out. And
Yeah.
that was impressive to see because we do see other fighters that do run scared that are much more accomplished. We just saw it with Jermell Charlo. Hell, we even saw it with Lomachenko against Teofimo Lopez for 6 rounds, right? Like he just blocked and circled out. He showed very good defense, but I'm like, damn, bruh. Like you would think like Teofimo is more experienced and that much more stronger than you, Loma, and he did exactly the same thing that Jamel did. But one is actually reasonable, inactive for a year and 6 months, and had surgery and moving up 14 pounds. And one is, bro, you're fighting a 20-year-old kid and he's doing this to you. So I think a lot of people fail to recognize. That's why I'm not so heavily criticizing Jamel because even though while I did expect Jamel to fight a little more, I did realize, like, I mean, I wasn't giving Jermell a chance to be Canelo, and because of those three big factors. Um, where on the Loma case, I put money on Teofimo because I knew Teofimo was going to beat Loma, but I didn't think
Mhm.
it was because Loma was going to spot him 6 rounds of blocking and circling around, essentially the same thing as Jermell. So, you know what I'm saying? But we don't talk about that. We just talk about how Devin Haney got beat by Loma.
Um, Here's, if you don't mind me asking, before we wrap it up, because I'm sure that it's getting closer to that time to call it a night, and
Yeah.
hope we dream with have
Round
sweet
two.
dreams, right?
Adam Hurley says, I got Tim Tszyu over Tommy Fury with Fury at 180 pounds. Yeah,
I love Mr. Hurley's
yeah,
energy.
that's chill.
Yeah.
I would favor Tim Tszyu over Tommy because he has
uh,
no inside game, man. I mean, damn, he doesn't know how to fight off the clinch. It was a horrible fight. But you were saying something sweet about
No, I was actually gonna ask Mr. Adam Hurley. One, did you watch the influencer fights, Mr. Hurley, and did you enjoy yourself? If you did, and if you did, was there any standout moments for you? Secondly, besides that, and I guess equally or maybe more so, more importantly, um, what did you think about? Who do you think would win between Tim Tszyu and Jermel Charlo? I guess maybe I should even start by saying, do you think Charlo comes back down to 160? Um, and we'll wait for him to answer those two questions while I read to you this. There's a couple of reporters out there, homie Ricky, mostly coming from Boxing News 24 and everything. I'm not too sure if you've ever read reports by Boxing News 24, but they call themselves boxing media, but they are very, very opinionated. And sometimes they will give snide remarks. Now, I'm not very used to that kind of opinion in professional media, right? Like, for example, me and you, we do give our opinions, and maybe you and I, we do say um, words in terms that perhaps would not be accepted or would be becoming a professional. author of boxing related news. But these guys really go out there and just like clown on these dudes and say that this guy, short of calling them a bum, right? And it's hard for me to sometimes read these missives, but they're entertaining enough because they say truths, but then they throw in their personalized commentary, which for the most part, it can be quite offensive. But in one of these reports on Boxing News 24, they basically talk about how Tszyu had a tough outing against Brian Mendoza. That in fact he was hurt with the body shot, which Tszyu called it a low blow, and that if Brian Mendoza had decided to attack Tszyu when Tszyu decided to like point out that he had hit him low, that he may have hurt and maybe even knocked down Tszyu. Now let me ask you something. Do you remember that body shot? It was somewhere like in the sixth round, seventh round. It hit him, on the belt, and Tszyu responded like, "Hey, like this right here." And that Brian Mendoza, he actually stopped the action. These guys were proposing that Brian Mendoza throw punches right after. I agree. You don't stop or you don't acknowledge any low blows and things of that sort, if unless, of course, the third man in the ring says, "Hey, pick him up." The guy did not. So Brian Mendoza should have completely ignored Tszyu and started throwing punches there. Now, I don't think he was seriously hurt. These guys make it seem like he was. And another thing that I wanted to tell you was Tszyu fighting dirty. In your eyes, the homie Ricky, I think you dropped off. But Tszyu hit Brian Mendoza quite a few times in the back of the head. Now, I do understand that the reason for why that happened was because how Brian Mendoza was coming down to avoid a few punches, but Tszyu was hitting him in the back of the head, aware and conscious that it was in the back of the head. Um, I just wonder whether anybody else noticed that, because that was very, very, very dangerous. Um, Mr. Adam Hurley says, "I did see the Misfits. I thought it was disappointing. I think I got Tszyu. And the KSI Fury was ridiculous with all of the holding." Yeah, oh man. Um, I think Tszyu would eventually take over Charlo in the later rounds. I do too. It would definitely be in the later rounds because I think both of them are crafty and smart enough to last all 12, especially more so now. I think, hmm, that's a tricky one. Uh, I think Tszyu is very patient, so he can carry a fight until the last second. But we also know that Jermell Charlo is very durable and well experienced, and he has always lasted 12 rounds. So I think that would definitely see the conclusion of the fight. But I agree with you, Mr. Hurley. The KSI versus Log. Well, no. KSI, he fought. Yeah, he fought Tommy Fury. That was a boring match. That was a hug fest, and I completely, I find it not only embarrassing on the side of KSI that he is still fighting so amateurish, that he's still expending so much energy hopping back and forth without doing anything, because he doesn't have to expend that energy. He doesn't have to just hop back and forth. That's not even a good proper boxing hop from the way that he was doing it, and especially the way that he was telegraphing his punches. He doesn't jab. He just throws that one hand. It's almost like a Deontay Wilder attempt at knocking out his opponents. I don't think it was very impressive at all. And he does so that he can close the gap of space and then get in close proximity so that he can hold. But here's the thing, though, Mr. Hurley. I was impressed by KSI ability to clinch, right? a lot of there is a difference between holding and clinching. Holding is just, an attempt at restraining your opponent to halt the action. And a lot of the time when you do that, it's because you're trying to A, avoid the attack of your fellow opponent, or B, it's a survival tactic. When you're seriously hurt, you're trying to hold to spare yourself. Any boxer, any trainer that deals with boxing, they should work on proper holding when trying to survive. But I noticed that uh, KSI was actually, for the most part, clinching, which is he knew that he was not good enough at throwing the jab or really being effective at hitting Tommy Fury with that too. So what he wanted to do is get close where he can use that close proximity to fight in between the clinch. So he would try to bring one of his hands down, Tommy Fury's hands down, so that he can sneak in a punch here and there. He would try maneuver and start popping, or doing those kind of punches. In other words, doing what good proficient clinchers do, which is post and frame his opponent. He was working on that. So I think if anything, KSI would probably be better at being a clinch in a close quarters fighter than an outside fighter, because I don't think he's a very good fighter from afar at all. Um, Now I was very impressed by the Salt Poppy, the Salt Poppy versus Slim fight. Um, Salt Puppy is very good as a southpaw Filipino fighter. You can tell that he has been taking it serious in the fact that he transformed his body and lost all that weight and looked muscular, and at the same time also fit. I think that means that he is taking himself quite seriously. I do think it may have affected his chin or his punch tolerance. But if you've been following Misfits boxing for a while, you know that Slim, uh, uh, I think this is beer. His last name, Slim. He's a very powerful fighter. He, for the most part, has knocked out everybody, and he's undefeated in about 7 fights. So he is very good. I think he was taking a lot of punishment, but he was smart enough and composed enough to see that even though Saul Papi was working very excellently, pushing him back against the ropes and popping to the body and hitting him upside the head, when he saw that opening, he saw that Saul Papi opened up. He just hit that two, boom, right in the chin. And man, oh man, to me, that was the knockout of the weekend. I know it's ridiculous, but that was great fighting from an influencer. I found that to be funny. And of course, the girl fights like Astrid Wed and everything like that, those are always funny because they don't have proper boxing technique, but they always end up bloody and beaten up. And somebody always gets hurt. There was a lot of good stuff, including the 2-on-2 uh, uh, tag team match, which I've always liked. Pineda, it was hilarious. Pineda, who's a pro boxer with an upside down record, he basically transforms himself into an influencer. He doesn't speak English because he's from Mexico. And he tag teams with B Dave, and B Dave is actually getting much better than the other misfit guys, even though he's the worst guy. He tags every time he gets punched once in the face. But this time, this one guy that I've never seen fight before, he knocks down Pineda. And Pineda, if you guys know anything, Pineda is the guy who's knocking everybody out because he's like a 6 foot something, 140 pounder or whatever, knocking all these influencers down. And it's hilarious because, it looks funny because he looks like a stick figure. So he gets knocked down by one guy. He tags B Dave, who's this like American guy that looks like a Canadian with a mullet, and then B Dave goes and knocks the guy that hit him. It was hilarious, all kinds of fun. Now, as far as my $55, look, the main event's disappointing. What more can I say? Um, yeah, Mr. Adam Hurley, you didn't miss much. I mean, uh, you can see the moment when Salt Puppy gets knocked down. You sort of get an idea of how good the action was. but there's like little shorts on YouTube that you can just catch on the replays or on the highlights for Misfits, the Zone YouTube channels, and I think you'll get an idea of how interesting that fight would have been. But it was a pretty good event. I don't think it was worth $55 at the end of the day, especially the fact that Dylan Dennis and Logan Paul put up a stinker, just like bouncing in place and acting all stupid and just embarrassing themselves, whatever. But uh, yeah, that was hopefully the next time they any of these guys fight, um, it is not a pay-per-view. Um, I wanted to just read out a couple of the most recent news very quickly. Tszyu is now done and over with fighting in Australia, and he wants to take over the U.S. I think homie Ricky did address that. I think that's smart. So I think that's his concession to Jamel Charlo, and it's real reasonable acknowledgement that irrespective of the fact that he has one belt, he knows that he never beat Charlo. That's why he's wanting to beat Charlo for the right to be called the champion uh, of recognized by fighting, but also because Charlo still holds two of the belts and three of the belts really, but one that is likely going to be stripped in about 20 days from now because one of the mandatory sanctioning bodies, the IBF, is demanding that Charlo responds to whether or not he's going to be fighting this nondescript and heralded fighter by the last name of Martisaliev. So we'll see how that goes. I think Jermell Charlo will probably give that belt up, but if he decides to come back, there's also going to be lots of smoke right there. On to absurd things. Here's another one. Apparently, Tim Tszyu wants to fight Canelo Alvarez. Okay. Okay. All right. Maybe 3 or 4 fights from now. Maybe once you climb up in rank. Once you beat Charlo, if you get to beat Charlo, once you overcome Terence Crawford, if you overcome Terence Crawford, and if you go to 160 and you do something there, and if you go to 168 and you do something there, then in that case, okay, go for it. I have no problem with that. And another news of the absurd, Shakur Stevens, boxing scene reports that Shakur Stevens on the subject of Naoya Inoue. He's a hell of a fighter. Tell him come up and fight me. Man, what is it about these Bo Mac fighters that all of a sudden want to fight everybody, including people from weight classes way higher or way lower than them? It almost shows the desperation from stemming from the fact that they themselves cannot get the guys around in or around their weight class to fight him. I guess Shakur Stevens has been dug by a few fighters, uh, and he's desperate for fights. But why are you talking like that when you already got Edwin de los Santos to fight next month? Like, get over that, and then we'll deal with what's next. But don't be calling out a 122 pounder when you're at 135. Get real, man. Get real, and that applies to Terence Crawford too. Terence, do something about Errol Spence. Are you gonna take him at 147, or are you gonna force him down to 147 for a fight we'll never pay for again? Or are you gonna go to 154 and give him a shot to see if he's outgrown the weight and is more competitive there? Or if not, guess what? Fight Tim Tszyu. Fight I don't know, Erickson Lubin. Uh Fight Fandora. Get yourself acclimated at 154 so you can make a call out for the big boys. But why are you calling out Canelo? Get real. Um, I still think Tink should fight Shakur. Yeah, yeah, Mr. Hurley. We the homie Ricky and I, we always go back and forth on the subject of Gervonta Tank Davis. Gervonta Tank Davis, we know is the goods. Every fighter that has sparred with him has always said he's the goods. It's just for whatever reason or another, his handlers never allow him to take on the best fights, um, or the names that we want him to fight against, the real belt holders. I agree. I think that fight should happen. I don't know how it plays out. I think Shakur Stevens, his fighting style is as a counter puncher, is one that would demand of Shakur Stevens to come forward, and we know that Shakur Stevens can come forward when he's feeling like it. But for the most part, he's also a standoffish fighter that's waiting for you to engage so that he can just pick you apart. So we'll see how that goes. That's a very interesting proposal. Um, I just don't know if it'll ever happen. Who would I root for? Who would you root for in the Tszyu Charlo fight? Speed. You know what, Mr. Hurley? I respect both fighters. I respect Jermel Charlo and the run he's had.
Not what he
He's
asked. He asked you who
it's
you
hard for
rooted
me to
for.
say because that's what I said.
Yeah, that's a
Well,
tough
here's
question,
the
man.
thing, though, homie Ricky. You dropped out for a little while, but I was asking you, did you see Tim Tszyu one get hurt to a body shot, uh, or was that a low blow, or was he not even hurt? And secondly, was Tim Tszyu fighting dirty when he was hitting Brian Mendoza in the head, in the back of the head? Because I'll tell you one thing. If
To
that's
answer
the
your
case, I'll tell you one thing. If that's
was
the
hurt
case, I will
body shot.
cheer on for Jermel Charlo because at least he's not a dirty fighter.
Well, I'm not gonna say those were dirty punches. What I was gonna say is, yes, there were like in the ear behind the head area, but I think it was mainly because Brian Mendoza was like turning his head that way, and I'm like, don't do that, because you're only giving him that side of your head to hit. So I was kind of Brian Mendoza, kind of Tim Tszyu, both playing equal parts. There was times where that ref wanted to jump in and be like, and Brian Mendoza was like, bro, you're kind of hitting me behind the head. So I'm not gonna say that he's a dirty fighter because overall Tim is a clean fighter. Two, you said something about a low blow. Was he hurt? Yes, he was definitely hurt by that low blow. Was it a low blow? Yes, because Tim Tszyu threw like an uppercut or a left hook that, like, he missed, but it made him go up. And then when Brian Mendoza landed that punch, it did hit him kind of like in that balls area, the groin section. So it did hurt. But going back, Brian Mendoza didn't capitalize on that moment and didn't follow it up with another body shot. So I'm not gonna say that he was hurt by a body shot because I thought it was low, and on the repetition it showed that he hit the groin area. But yeah, I don't think he was hurt by any other clean body shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think, I thought it was low too, um, but he didn't stay hurt. That was very impressive. Um, he didn't stay hurt. And what I was telling you, the homie Ricky, I don't think you heard that, is that some of these reporters from these boxing websites were saying that Brian Mendoza, had he capitalized on the moment and tried to attack Tim Tszyu when he was, pointing out the fact that he had been struck low, that would have been a proper opportunity for Brian Mendoza to really hurt uh, Tim Tszyu. And I really don't think that he was that seriously hurt. And even if he did get seriously hurt, it was very fleeting and short lived because it didn't really affect the rest of the round, or the outcome of that round, which I believe was a round that went for Tim Tszyu eventually. So I don't know. I just found Tim Tszyu be a little dirty. Here's the thing, Ricky. I understand. I understand, homie Ricky. You try to evade punches by hunching down, but when I saw Tim Tszyu throw his punches, he knew that he was hunched down. It wasn't like you're following the head and your punch goes in the direction of the head and it just happens to land in the back of the head. It was definitely Brian Mendoza went down. Tim Tszyu threw the punch knowing that the guy was down. And I really didn't like that. He did it a few times. It took a while before Brian Mendoza said, all right, I'm not doing that anymore. Um, but if you're gonna make those kind of mistakes, Brian, you have to point out to the third man in the ring, hey, that's the back of the head. That's a back of the head shot. Tell him something. And I don't think Mendoza really advocated enough for himself to influence the way that the ref was handling the whole situation. But again, it really didn't affect anything in the long run. The better man won, and he won the way that he had to. Um, but yeah, I just think people have to be aware of that if they're gonna fight Tim Tszyu, that he can be dirty. Um, so, homie Ricky, uh, what do you think about that? Shakur Stevens is asking, is welcoming Naoya Inoue fight. Is that absurd? Is that news of the absurd?
Yeah, that's just a fucking curveball. I wonder where that came from, man.
Well, as soon as I read the title, I didn't even bother to read it because, like, even if there was proper context, under what kind of reasoning can you make that make sense? Like, does that make sense to you as a boxing fan? You want to see a fight like that? Like, no, I think Mr. Adam Hurley is correct. We should entertain fights like Shakur Stevens and Gervonta Tank Davis, but why would anybody even fathom a fight between Naoya Inoue, who just barely touched down at 122, to fight a 135 pounder? Like, it's stupid what these people are thinking, and I think it just comes to demonstrate the type of desperation and the complications in matchmaking for Shakur Stevens, that for whatever reason or another everybody wants to avoid. But at least Edwin de Los Santos is stepping up, so God bless that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know for sure, man. The way I look at it is like, if I'm Naoya Inoue, I'm flattered. Like, I'm like, bro. So this is what it feels like to get the world's attention in terms of my universe, right? People want Navarrete versus Naoya. Others want like, I don't know, top 126 pounders. Shakur wants to fight him. Fucking Tank Davis was like, I'll fight Naoya. So it's just like, wow, this is what it, like. If I'm Naoya, I'm kind of blushing. I'm like, wow. So this is what it feels like to, be Canelo. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know, bro. It's very weird. I don't know where that article. What's the context? Where does that come from? Like, who asked Shakur that? Did Shakur just tweet it after the fight versus Stephen Fulton? I don't know, man. It's just it's so strange for Shakur to even mention Naoya's name when it's like, bro, you have, I don't know. I need to know the context, because like you said, bro, you're fighting Edwin de Los Santos. Adam is saying, bro, entertain a Tank Davis fight, call him out more than, like, come on, bro. You're asking a guy who just moved up to 122, impressively, not only dethroned one of the top fighters, but he made it where it was outclassed by the jabs, the speed, the power, and then he still knocked them out. Like, that's domination. That was amazing. And you're asking him to move up and skip 126, 130, and then go straight to you at 135, three weight classes. That's fucking, like, I'm telling you, it's, if I'm Naoya, I'm like, these guys respect my skills.
Oh, so you're right. So I just read it. That's exactly where he's coming from. He's coming from not only a place of respect, he's actually coming from a place of reverence. I guess the fighter that he studies the most is Naoya Inoue. That's crazy. Because if you know anything about Shakur Stevens, he's like most of the new generation of Olympians or former Olympians, right? They're very brash and bumptious, and they think highly of themselves. Rarely ever do they give props to any fighter except those in their camp, and yeah, those in their camp will beat everybody, and Keyshawn Davis is the greatest up and comer in the world, blah 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 blah, right? But I guess this is what Shakur he's saying, right? He says that he admits that Inoue is his favorite fighter to study. He admits that Inui can do it all. Boxing on the outside, no problem. Once you bang out in the middle of the ring, sure. Inui is well versed in practically every part of the ring. So he's actually he says that Stevenson would simply want to know what it feels like to be in the ring with the fighter the caliber of Inui. He's a hell of a fighter, he says. Quote, honestly, he's one of the fighters I've been watching the most lately. I give him his credit in terms of skill, his speed, his power. Everything is tremendous, but I think he's just a little too small. He's absolutely too small, Shaq. He started at 108. Come on, 108. You're probably 108 in 12th grade, not even in 12th grade, when you were 12 years old. So yeah, just leave it at that, bro. You love the guy. You love the guy. He's your favorite fighter, but just keep it at that. A dream match would be you and him, but don't pursue that for the sake of us. Just keep that guy's name out your mouth, and when you do, just say nice things about him, but don't call him out in the fight. Yeah, and I agree with you, Mr. Hurley. I think Shakur is looking for anyone with a big name. That might be where Inua comes in. I just don't think and it's not like Shakur Stevens is like so youthful and innocent that we have to say, oh well, he's just a person with these lofty lofty dreams. No, he's 26 years old. He's he's around the block. He should think more maturely. He should say, I love that guy, and that's a dream fight, but I'll never fight him. But anyways, man, how come you keep leaving me all by myself, the homie Ricky?
Oh yeah, man. Sorry, it's cause so I was getting off of work and then I drive, so I'm not trying to have you guys hear the sound of the road. And then so when I'm switching, from work to home, it's got to connect with the Wi-Fi. So then I hear a lot of like static. It's very on and off. So I'm just kind of like, all right, let me just log out, come back in, type of thing.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. So anyways, homie Ricky, I was just talking to Mr. Adam Hurley. Uh, the the moment of the week for me was Brian Mendoza's ability to survive and to actually come back stronger from almost being stopped, and Slim's knockout of Salt Poppy. Those were the
What?
best moments of the week for me in
Yeah,
boxing.
for sure. No, those are some good moments, man. I didn't get to watch really most of, if not any of those fights. Just watched the Tim Tszyu. I don't really think we watched a little bit of Zani Beck. It was a lot of boxing going on, so it's kind of
Mhm.
tough. I hate like flipping through the channels and trying to watch all three things at once. But yeah, no, the Tim Tszyu Brian Mendoza, that was the Saturday for me in terms of the fights. That was incredible. I mean, it wasn't that great of a fight in terms of being competitive, but I love the heart and the grit that
Mm.
Mendoza showed. And yeah, man, Tim Tszyu's the real deal. And hopefully Jermell entertains him or entertains that fight rather than move up to 160. I hope he goes down and try to fight Tim Tszyu for all the marbles and regain his supreme status of undisputed champion. That's gonna be a good ass fight. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, man, I'm just like rubbing my hands together because that's gonna be a good ass night of boxing. And yo, whose coffee is that?
Yeah, and just to end on my end, the homie Ricky, I'll just end it with this. We know that Emmanuel Navarrete, his next fight is going to be with Brazilian Robson Conceição. Remember, Robson Conceição was about to fight a couple of weeks ago, but they took
Oh
him
yeah.
away when they decided that he could actually plug himself into a Navarrete fight. Uh,
Oh
that's a
yeah, yeah.
great.
No, he's gonna be in the co-main versus Shakur and Edwin De Los Santos. That's a very good. That's a really good night of boxing.
It is.
And yeah, no, that's a good fight. I will be rooting for Navarrete, but I know they're gonna have him the favorite. And since I like to bet, Robson Conceição is a live dog. And I don't know if Robson Conceição punches hard enough or has the punch selection to hurt Navarrete, but I'll probably root for him. And then Shakur Stevenson by decision. And I think that would be like maybe plus 550 odds. So I kind
Hmm.
of like it, bro. I kind of like it. Do you know
Yeah,
if that
yeah,
fight's like in December or next year? Do you know?
yeah.
In November? What is
November
it?
16th.
Ooh, nice.
Navarrete is scheduled to defend his title 2 weeks later on November 16th when he takes on Olympic gold medalist Robson Conceição. Uh, but here's the thing, though. The reason why I brought him up is because Boxing Scene reports that Joe Cordina watches every second of every round that Navarrete is in.
Yeah, as well as you should. That's a unification bout. Before going to Navarrete, hold on. I kind of want. I would go. I just hopped on boxing scene, and it says
Yeah,
here, Tim Tszyu wondered how Mendoza was still standing. Says a lot of fighters would have quit, and that's what we're going back to. What you and me were talking about. What was our favorite moment of the weekend? And it's that heart, that willingness to not give up from Brian Mendoza. So I can't emphasize enough when a warrior shows you that warrior spirit. So shout out to Brian Mendoza. Even though you came up short,
absolutely.
fuck, bro, you earned so much fucking fans. That was fantastic,
Yeah,
bro. Like,
incredible.
like words cannot like describe. Like he's being destroyed, but he in his heart he knows he's not defeated, and he's still continuing to grind it out. Man, bro, that's like you can't. There's no words that you know. That was incredible, man. Wow.
Yeah, no, that's I will always root for those guys. The guys who give it up for us just for our entertainment, and it's not even that, the homie Ricky. It's not the fact that he just survives or he endures or he refuses to quit. It's that he got better. Like at the moment when he should have been destroyed, the end for most other fighters, he got better at the last round when he's already beaten up to a pulp, his eyes severed and lacerated, tired from enduring, tired from the action, moving back and forth, parring, weaving, bobbing. He still comes back to win that 12th round more than convincingly. In fact, that was his best round. It was one of the better rounds won by both men. He moved well. He made his opponent miss. He popped every punch that he wanted to and got Tim Tszyu on him. It was incredible. Now, yeah, I can't stress that enough. Like how impressed I was.
Like we have to understand is this: all those defensive posturing, jumping up, being very slick, those were all survival tactics from Brian Mendoza. But it was better than just the basic survival tactics because he was still throwing, so he always remained dangerous. And yeah, man, that's called pulling your tricks all over your sleeve. Like for instance, when Errol Spence was getting blitzed and
Hmm.
pummeled by Terrence Crawford, right? Some of those pictures are gruesome that they were able to freeze frame and catch live in the moment. Errol had always told us in the past, oh, you guys haven't seen the best out of me. If there was ever a fight, gotta lower my voice down because people are sleeping. If there was ever a fight where you have to show that you can go from being a traditional southpaw to an orthodox to showing your impeccable Olympic background, that would be the time, Errol, against Bud Crawford, because that traditional kind of guard that you throw, it's fucking not working. Brian Mendoza showed you. I showed you all the tricks on my sleeve. Even though I came up short, he still showed everything that he had. It was awesome to see. I loved the way he was going about his final rounds. Bro, just I cannot. That was, even though as a loss, when we talk about devastating defeats, that was an amazing way to go out on your shield. That's some warrior shit. That
Yeah.
was badass, bro. That, I can't tell. I'm telling you, I cannot stress enough how real and authentic that loss was, because you typically don't see, because this was a one-sided beatdown. Like it really was, like 9 rounds to 3, 8 rounds to 4, but they were always competitive. And there was always a new look, bro. It was badass, bro. It was cool.
Yeah, but the thing is this though, homie Ricky, check this is what I was saying. How there's these boxing venues, boxing online venues that report these news
Yeah.
with this very subjective and formal way of reporting. Boxing News 24, check this out. You tell me if there's any validity to what they're saying. Tim Tszyu says Brian Mendoza not toughest opponent of his career. Now, I disagree. I think that was a tough display. Maybe not the most complicated, but
No, that was also the most complicated one.
yeah, but no. But that again, that's subjective.
Well,
Tim is the one
to be
fighting them,
honest
so
with
he
you,
has to.
I can't speak on that because I haven't watched all of Tim Tszyu's fights. So I
Yeah,
haven't seen Tim Tszyu versus Jeff Horn. I haven't seen him with like Zerafa. So I haven't seen all those other fights that happened in Australia prior to touch landing here in Terrell Geisha. I
yeah.
have
So
heard the
he
name
actually
Tim
mentions
Tszyu.
Terrell and
Yeah, I had.
Takashi Inui. I think you've seen
Okay,
those
yeah.
though.
So, maybe I did see Takashi New. I don't know. I would have to go back, because I have been paying attention to Tim Tszyu because obviously he's his father. But I haven't really watched all of his career, so I can't really speak on that. But
Yeah,
I thought this fight was, yeah, bro. You would have to say it was tougher than the other fight with Terrell Gausha, but
or
maybe
Harrison.
not because he was still in the process of learning, and he's still in the process of learning to this day. But against Terrell Gausha, you can say that was his first step up in class. So I can understand where they might say that might have been tougher for him because of he wasn't yet molded or
Yeah.
experienced enough. It's again, it's subjective. I don't really care what boxing
No, but check this out.
articles.
This is what it states. It says it appeared that Mendoza caused Tim massive trouble during the fight, but Tszyu may not want to admit it. Some would argue that if Mendoza hadn't lost his momentum after the sixth round, he could have defeated Tszyu. Mendoza was certainly dominating Tszyu when he was at his best, but he didn't have the gas tank to maintain what he had started. Do you think it was an issue with the gas tank that made it so that Tim Tszyu, so that Brian Mendoza lost?
No, I'm not gonna say it was a gas tank problem. I thought it was more of a like Tim Tszyu was trying to figure out, how he's gonna be able to sustain his attack and how he's gonna solve the riddle of Brian Mendoza. And then he predicted, like in the beginning, first 6 rounds, right? It was competitive. You could have it 3-3 or 4-2 Tim Tszyu, but Tim Tszyu he was studying him, and then he figured him out. And that's where
Yeah,
all those knockdowns came. And then Brian Mendoza showed you a different gear. He showed you a different look. He showed you multiple looks in the 10th after the 10th round, right? When that fight was close to being stopped and getting hit by those three uppercuts and that straight two. In the 11th look, he gave you a different look, right? He was still surviving, but he was rolled in and parrying shots, really never clinching. In the 12th round, he gave you that fucking Emmanuel Augustus drunken bastard kind of look, hopping up, being very slick, like always dangerous and always looking to throw a punch. And then Tim Tszyu was like, man, this is a different look from Brian Mendoza that I've never seen or studied before in prior fights. So then he kind of like was a little perplexed, right? But I don't think it was a stamina problem. I just figured out that I felt like Brian Mendoza should have been giving Tim Tszyu different looks every single fucking round.
hmm
Um, and not allowing himself to get figured out, right? This is what Floyd Mayweather always talks about. He changes the rhythm and the cadence and the look of a fight. Sometimes he'll come forward. Sometimes he uses a shoulder roll. Sometimes he'll circle around. So that's what Brian Mendoza failed to do. And then by the time he did try to give you those different looks in different rounds, it was already a little too late and it was already down 9-3. You know what I mean? Maybe even you can count one of those rounds 10-8 because it was that much more dominant that you had to add that level of disparity and separation because that 10th round was, I mean, that ref was looking to hop in and stop it at any single moment.
yeah. It's just funny because they use words like Mendoza was using power shots, bouncing off Tim's chin. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know he had some good punches in there, but he was just bouncing punches off Tim's chin. I don't know
Well,
about that,
well,
like,
I
and
mean,
then that he could have gone for the coup d'état. No, the coup de
The coup
grace.
de grace. Yeah, coup
The
de
yeah, the
grace.
coup de grace to finish the job because Tim was doubled over in pain from the perfectly placed body shots, doing his
Might have been a
best
low blow
acting
though.
job to feign being hit by a low blow. I mean, bro, it literally took him like 2 seconds to say, "Hey, you hit me on the nuts," and that was it. And then they went back to action. Like, I don't know if these guys are writing this while they're watching the fight in slow motion. That's why they think he like acted. But it's funny sometimes
No, I
these.
mean Brian Mendoza did. I mean, those are some funny words, but
Yeah,
are a little over exaggerated. But no, Brian
yeah.
Mendoza, he landed his good amount of powerful shots. Just just weren't enough, man. You got to land combinations, and I don't think he did that. He did land singular shots, but I mean, it's got to be more. You got to duplicate them.
Homie Ricky, Mr. Hurley writes. Uh, There's some good fights on the Tyson Fury undercard also. You'll have to talk about those fights someday. I remember a couple of weeks ago, because there hasn't really been much buildup, and there shouldn't be. For a whole month. For a whole month, there hasn't really been any updates on that fight. What's going to happen? So it's going to be closer to these days, maybe starting this week, because the fight is like in 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but
Really good, really good.
but the undercard was developing into something pretty nice. It was like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll actually read
heavyweights.
them to you. Yeah, you have David Adeleye versus
Uh huh.
Fabio Wardley.
Hmm.
If you read the Cannabis
Ooh,
Box magazine that I bought you, it talks about Fabio Wardley. So that should be a very good fight. You have Joseph Parker versus Simon Keane. I don't know who Simon Keane is, but I do know who Joseph Parker is. Then you have Martin Bacoli. He helped me win $800 by beating Tony Yoka. So that's that Martin Bacoli guy, and he's fighting Carlos Takam, which is, I mean, I like Carlos Takam. He's a veteran. He's experienced. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, that's another guy. It's like a Gabriel Rosado, just takes on tough fights after tough fights. And then there's Arslanbek Makhmudov versus Agron
Makhmudov.
Smakiki. I don't know. And
Come
then
on.
Moses. I can't pronounce
Shakiki.
it. No, well, his name is Agron and Smakici. Smakiki. I don't know, bro.
Man, that's probably the worst pronunciation of anything
It's
you've ever
probably
said.
Smakiki. It's probably Agron Smakiki, but and then Moses Ituama. Like, so that's not a bad undercard for a fucking quote unquote main event being an exhibition bout. You know what I'm saying? It's not bad. I would have to do more
All
research
heavyweights.
because
All heavyweights.
is
And
Fabio Worley a heavyweight or is he a cruiser? He's heavy.
oh
You
crap.
might
No,
be
no,
right.
no.
He might be a
No.
heavyweight.
No, well, I know he's an up and comer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was a matchroom fighter,
Mm-hmm.
or at least he was being promoted by Eddie Hearn. I've watched about three of his fights. Very exciting guy. Not necessarily crude. He's actually, yeah, I think you might be right. He's pretty small for a heavyweight, so he might just be a cruiserweight. But nonetheless, those big boy fights promise excitement because that's one thing that we come for, right? This is the one thing that I really haven't really forgiven Anthony Joshua for, the fact that uh he's fighting so tentative. Yes, he did get the knockout against Robert Helenius, but we watch the big boy fights because they promise the stoppage for the most part. Never do you see a guy make it all the way through on the heavyweight fights, and if they do, they shouldn't. Right, except for Alexander Usyk, but that's the reason. He's a smaller guy. I think he used to, fight at at middleweight in the Olympics. So, um,
Yeah, like
but yeah,
40 years ago.
well, he's only 32.
I know, but like, come on, like you got to bring up like people grow, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 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 I know they grow. Yeah, he's definitely grown now, man. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
no.
hold on,
But
Simon
here's the
Keane.
thing, though. Are we
He's
gonna
from
pay?
Canada. Simon Keane is from Canada, and he's 23 with
Ooh.
one loss by 22 KOs. But he hasn't really fought nobody. But he has knocked out Eric Molina, the school teacher out of like New Jersey,
Mhm. Yeah, so
or
that's the
Florida,
thing, though. If
Texas.
he's fought nobody, that also allows me to think that he is himself a nobody. So I
Well,
can't
no,
be too
but he's
harsh about
fighting a
that.
somebody. He's fighting a
That's
somebody. I think he's
yeah,
fighting Joseph Parker.
that's what I'm trying to say though. Like whenever people compare records and they say something about oh he's fought nobody, I'm thinking to myself, well then he's a nobody, and he's fighting men such as himself, and he's getting the better of them. So that's how people stand out, you know. But yeah, I think the card itself, homie Ricky, is good enough, but I don't know if
Is it good enough for
American.
$80? You told me that Misfits Boxing, so we're like 75, bro.
Look, I think it's
You such a guy. You go ahead.
I it's because I spend almost on every fight, right? I think and I don't know if they're gonna get my $80 this time. Not because they're not names that I'm familiar with, but mostly because I have to send a message to Fury.
You were just
And
glazing over yourself for freaking Fabio Wardley.
no, I know, but I'm not trying to hurt them guys. I'm trying to send a message to Tyson Fury and say, hey, bro, we've been calling out for other fights, and you gave me this MMA guy.
Wow.
I don't
Bro,
know.
so
80
you mean
bucks
to
is a
tell
lot of
me,
money.
that Tyson Fury hasn't earned your respect, where after weighing close to 400 pounds, being inactive after 2 years, coming back and fighting Deontay Wilder, and you want to send him a message by not supporting him for Francis Ngannou?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, because I want him to
Are you
fight
serious right
Anthony
now?
Joshua. I want him to fight Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk. I think if we continue to sponsor. Financially sponsor the types of fights that he wants to take at this moment, when we've been calling for those fights for years to take place, and he decides to fight a non-boxer and Francis Ngannou, and they're African, and one is African and the other one is British, and they have no association whatsoever to the United States of America. How can they pass this off for this fight offering for $80? Not even. It's
Again,
ludicrous.
listen, it's
I,
pretty
I don't know
simple.
if
We
I'm gonna
kind of
pay for
talked.
that.
We kind of gave you an example. Look, if Jamel gets beat by Canelo Alvarez,
Oh man,
then
that's funny.
and gets stripped of his titles, guess what happens? He's no longer gonna get the Bud Crawford fight. In this point, if Fury fights Usyk and gets beat by Usyk, Ngannou's off the table. So that's the reason why. Look, I understand it's a BS, but it's a business move. You know what I'm saying? I,
I
I
get it.
don't agree with it. He's not gonna get my money. I agree with you guys. You know what I'm saying? But um, I can't knock his hustle. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, it's like he's been giving us some pretty good fucking fights, right? And
Well,
he's got to secure the bag for his family. And
he
out
gave
of
us
let's say out
three
of
fights
30,
with Wilder.
right? And those were some really brutal fights, bro. Those were not easy fights. To
But
get
once
into
you
the
beat a
hold on,
guy and
you gotta.
knock him out, homie Ricky, you move on.
But hold on, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. It's very hard for Tyson Fury to weigh close to like 450 pounds, to cut down and weigh like 290 and 2 years of inactivity and box the way he did with a guy who's been active and knocking everybody out in Wilder. Imagine how hard it must have been to do the road work and the road work on his knees.
Yeah,
That's
no, I
one.
guess you're
Hold
right.
on,
I guess you're right. Maybe I
hold
should
on. So
pay
that's
eighty
one.
dollars because
No.
he's no
But
longer
what I'm
fat.
saying is, you gotta respect it. Watch, that's the first time. Then the second time, knowing that, bro, this dude probably beat me because he knocked me out in the 12th rounds, and I was given like a 30 count. Um, he went in there, made adjustments, went to the crunk gym, right? And imagine the mentality, the flipping of the switch from being an out slick boxer, quote unquote, a boring heavyweight, because Fury to that point had always been boring, and then he comes out and has to change his whole psyche, his whole mentality, and actually to hurt another human being, pummel them, be ruthless, and sleep Deontay Wilder to the point where people were like, glove gate. He was slapping. Those gloves were loaded. They had to say a conspiracy because Fury had never been able to do that his whole career. And so imagine like the type of videos, the dogfighting mentality he had to have, you know what I mean, just to get into that mind space to actually hurt somebody. You know how difficult it is, right? Because you have a son who competes, to make your son do something that he's not really molded to do, right? Because your son knows how to box, but he's not a killer. Fury knows how to box, and then in that point to get him to actually hurt somebody, there has to be a lot of pain.
I don't know what
Uh,
happened, homie Ricky, but I can't hear a
so
thing anymore.
wait, you can't hear me? Well, bro, I've been talking. Yo, mic check real quick, Adam, and can you guys hear me, or am I just like I've been just saying nothing? That would suck. That what?
The internet's been acting up.
I cannot hear anything anymore. Wow. Okay, Adam Hurley says that he can hear me. Speed. So sorry about that, guys. I thought it was good. Hold on, man. I'm gonna just try to do that. Wow, that was kind of weird. So hopefully I don't repeat myself, but just that mind space that he had to do to hurt Wilder in that manner. And then knowing what you said, Speed, he knocked him out. So usually when you knock out somebody, you move on. You know why? Because you're not going to not be motivated to wake up and fight him the third time. So you're going to take training off. And guess what? The third fight was very difficult for Tyson Fury. He got dropped twice. He didn't look in shape. And he showed a lot of heart and resolve to get off the canvas, which is not easy knowing how he weighs like 290 pounds, and still be able to knock out Wilder for a third time definitively. So again, that trilogy is amazing, bro. That trilogy alone is Hall of Fame worthy trilogy. Now I will agree to your guys' point. I am not a big fan of the Francis Ngannou fight. I'm not, but I do respect it, and I understand why he's taking it. Because again, guys, the Usyk fight is going to be there, right? Yes, I agree. He is holding up the heavyweight division, but if he fights Usyk and gets beat, I think Usyk is going to beat him. If he fights Usyk and gets beat, that Francis Ngannou table fight, 20 million off the table, maybe more, it doesn't exist. So, yeah, man, it's not an easy thing, but I'm also like realistic and fair. But yeah, it is shenanigans. But to your point, Adam, it is a pretty good fight. It'll be my introduction to see Simon Keane. I've never seen him fight, to be honest with you, but I'm pretty sure I can probably find that DAZN fight versus Eric Molina. And then Fabio Wardley versus Adelaide. That's a really good fight. But yeah, man. Yeah, no, it's going to be very. I'm gonna be tuning in. I'm gonna say that. Adam says that's interesting. You got Usyk. Yeah, man, I got Usyk because he is the superior boxer to that of Fury. And in order for Fury to beat Usyk, I think he's gonna have to go to the body. Usyk has better feet. There hasn't been a heavyweight that has better feet than Fury. That's one of Fury's biggest tools that he's got, his feet. For being as big as he is, 7 foot tall, with those extreme arms, with that arm length, his footwork, his ability to bounce, to slip punches. Well, guess what? Usyk does exactly like that. The difference is Usyk actually knows how to fight on the inside game. And I think he'll be able to. It's going to be tricky for Usyk at first, but once he dissects Fury, I think he'll be able to outwork him. But yeah, man, Fury, he's got great dimensions, but I think Usyk will take him. He's got better footwork. He uses side-to-side angles. It's going to be very interesting which Usyk shows up, right? What I mean by that, sorry, not Usyk, which Fury shows up. Is he going to try to dog walk Usyk, lean on him, 1-2, lean on him? Or is he going to, bounce on his feet? Or is like, man, there's so many possibilities. That's why that fight's very interesting. But yeah, man, first we got to get Francis Ngannou off the table. By any chance, do you guys know when that fight happens? Is it this year in December? Let's check it out. Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou. So this fight is on ESPN pay-per-view. They'll be fighting in October 28th. Oh, wow, in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. So it's in 2 weeks. Wait, today's the 14th, guys. Yeah, huh? Wow, not bad, man. Yeah, it's not a bad night of boxing. It's pretty good. It's also Halloween weekend, so that's gonna be pretty interesting. I'll have some guests over. I don't know if you guys celebrate Halloween, but I think I might have said this, but throw a little Halloween thing, like an annual thing. But anyway, guys, I'm getting kind of sleepy. The missus is telling me if I don't end this live, she's gonna bite my ear off. On that note, guys, have a good night, Adam. Thank you for always tuning in, brother, and I always like your input. I will definitely look and research Simon Keane and the other fighters on the other card. I always like tuning into new faces and new names. But yeah, man, have a good night, guys. My voice is going away, but I'll see y'all tomorrow. We'll probably talk about Freud and how he gave enough tranquilizer to sleep a horse. Good night, guys.